Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. On this week's episode, we'll be talking about the end of the Pokemon trading card game online era. That's right, PTCGO's servers have shut down. You can still transfer your account up to live, which you should do, as the full release of that will be coming out later this week. We'll talk about that and what that may or may not look like. We'll go over the results of the tournaments this past weekend and how they affect the upcoming Fresno Regional Championships, the last regional championships of this season, which are taking place this weekend. Both Azul and I will be there. We'll, of course, have Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment of the podcast. And we'll close out this episode by chatting about Paldea Evolved, the new expansion set to release this Friday. The cards won't be legal for Fresno. Cards have to be released officially for 2 weeks before they're legal for tournament play, but they will be available to play right away on TCG Live. So Azul and I will talk about some of the cards we're most excited for, things we're going to be trying out, and what current decks get better, get worse, all those type of things and more. But before we get into this week's episode, we do have an announcement. Our Patreon is officially live. We talked about it last week on the podcast, and it is now officially live. Tons of people have already signed up, shown their support. We've got a few different tiers available. And this week will be the first week that we're doing the little 30-minute bonus episode at the end of the cast. Azul and I are both super excited about this already. Thanks so much to everyone who has already signed up. And if you're interested, there will be a link in the description of the YouTube video and over on the podcasting platforms.
Yep.
A little bit of a long intro this week, Azul.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, super excited. The Patreon's live. Go check it out. Appreciate the support that you've all been showing to us. So if you want to support us further, you can. You have a way to do it over there. So yeah, we just got done with Milwaukee Regionals. Just got back a couple days ago. I'm a little bit tired still from that. Thankfully, my sleep schedule was still really good. Sometimes it's a little bit off when I get back from the East Coast, or I guess it's not quite East Coast, Midwest events.
That might be why it's not as off as it usually is.
Yeah, I guess maybe that extra hour.
You're
makes
only
that
2
big of a
hours
difference.
instead of 3 hours ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, I fell right back into my sleep schedule and everything like that, so it was pretty nice. But yeah, I got top 4 over in Milwaukee, which is nice. To got to that third. Getting to the winning in the last 2 events was still solid. Like getting to the winning in is good. I got to a third winning in this time around. This time I did get the win to then be able to ID to 2 rounds in a row. So I was like 11-2, and then ID'd the next 2 rounds. Hit Grant on the last round, so we just both ID'd our way into cut. And then I hit Grant in top 8. And even though I did finally lose, I finally lost to Grant in Swiss, actually, in day 1. It's the first time I've ever lost to Grant at a major tournament.
Yeah, you guys have a long history. You've played multiple times over the years, but also multiple times in super high stakes matches. And I think going into this weekend, didn't you have an 0-8-1, or Grant had an 0-8-1 record against you or something like that?
It's 0-8-1 or 7-1. Yeah. We already played twice this season already. We played twice at Salt Lake City, where we played on the winning in once again, and we ended up tying, and then I beat Grant in top 8 at Salt Lake City. Once again, we played the time first time we played was in day 1 in round 8. We were both 6-1, so we were both basically locked up for day 2, or pretty close, especially if we just kind of wanted to be. If we want to ID our last round, would be fine. And Graham beat me there, put me at 6-2. I played out my last round. My opponent did want to ID, but I played it out. I did beat them, so I got into day 2 at 7-2, which is definitely a big game changer compared to 6-2-1. So that was a pretty big buff to work with, thankfully. So that was nice. And then yeah, hit Grant. I guess 3 times throughout the whole tournament. We ID'd again, so now our record is 1-8-2. My record against Grant is 1-8-2.
Or yours is 8-1-2.
Oh, 8-1-2, 8-1-2. Yeah.
I'm used to talking to Grant about his record against you because
yeah,
it bothers him.
So got the dub there, and then I played against Caleb in top 4. We're all on one side of the bracket, which really kind of stunk. That we couldn't separate a little bit. It would have been nice to have at least one of us on the other side of the bracket, so we could have pushed for a squad finals, but ended up coming in a little bit short in top 4 to Caleb. I don't think I played that perfectly, but the way actually the games played out, I don't know if it actually mattered. I don't think I played super, super well in that series against Caleb. I was pretty fried at that point. And then playing on Playing on stage is definitely like another level. Like I don't think I get nervous playing on stage, but it's another level. Like there's the lights. It's a little bit less comfortable to play on stage. The judges are constantly reminding you to clean up your discard pile and clean up your loss zone and all that stuff. So it's definitely like another level of stress and just uncomfortability to play on the stage, especially that late in the tournament. Like when I played on stage on day one or day two against my ride on, it was like kind of whatever. But in the top four match, it was definitely
Might
like
have something to
a
do with
little
the matchup
exhausting.
there.
Yeah, and it was mirror match. So it was a little bit exhausting by the time I got to top four. But lost there to Caleb. But yeah, pretty good showing from the squad overall. We had three people, three players with the same 60. Of course, my squad always plays the same 60 in top eight. And then Danny lost the winning in, so we almost had four. And yeah, I finally got some extra championship points because if I just made like another top 16, I would have gotten zero CP. So I got 40 championship points from getting the top four. I think 40. I don't actually know how many it is, but some.
Got some points, replacing a previous top 16
Yeah.
finish. Yeah, well, congratulations, Azul. Top four is obviously awesome. Caleb made it to the finals, was not able to close it out, unfortunately. But we'll talk about the results from the tournament in just a moment. Like we talked about last week on the podcast, I also played in Milwaukee. I played the same 60 as Azul and the rest of his crew. And yeah, played the same Kyogre 60. Deck was really good, but I unfortunately did not make it into day two. I went 5-2-2, which is still an okay result, but I'm honestly pretty disappointed. I was prepping a lot. I felt pretty decent about my chances to make day two at this one, but I don't I'm okay, like I feel fine with the way I played. And I'm not denying that I could have made some mistakes along the way that maybe caused me to tie a game I should have won or lose a game I should have won. But I think overall, when I've gone back and thought about it, I don't really I really always try to be objective and like analyze where I think I could have done something maybe better or different or left myself with a different win condition. And I don't really think there was anything I could have done differently, but I won five, and then my two losses. One was to a Sablezard, which is the one that was in round eight that knocked me out of day two contention. It was just a lost zone mirror where um, we've only played two games. In the game I went second. I was choosing to go second in the Lost Zone Mirror all weekend. There was a little bit of a point of contention in our group about what was better, first or second, and I still think the jury's maybe a little out on what's correct,
Pretty
but
close.
it is close. But I was choosing second, and I whiffed the turn one attack. And if you go second and whiff the turn one attack, then it's just like
Then you're in trouble.
yeah, you're in big trouble. And it's Sablezard too, so they have a few more tricks and stuff, and they're a little more tooled to like they have more Sableye, they have more Clara generally, right? So
Yeah.
it honestly feels like it's a little tough there. But I did beat a different Sablezard earlier in the day, lost to that one in round eight. Then my other loss was to a Kyogre Lost Box Mirror. Um, I kind of dead drew. It was just one of those series where the deck didn't make it easier for me. I'm not saying I like didn't make a mistake that cost me a game along the way here. I think game three there was nothing I could have done. It was like open ogre, no coal risk going second, type thing. Um, but the first game, I maybe could have won if I had played around the possibility of him having boss's orders. I like benched a Raikou super early on, thinking it would
Yeah.
be okay to seal stone, and I maybe had to anyway. But he did play boss. It was pretty much like I knew it wasn't going to be exactly the same as R60 because he had Beach Court in the deck, but there was the boss in there, so he's probably just playing like less energy recycler, I would imagine. Um, and then I won game two, and I actually went for a pretty cool play where he I didn't get Manaphy quickly, and he was able to KO two Comfies with Greninja on like turn two. But because of that, I knew my bench was going to be able to be limited. So I went for kind of a cool play where at the end of the game, I was able to, because he lost owned his Dragonite, I was able to just like attack with Raikou, have Greninja on my bench, and then bench Manaphy that turn so he couldn't rope and Kyogre my Raikou, and it basically like checkmated him a turn early, which was kind of cool. Um, but yeah, other than that, and then I tied two Lugias, the bad one that I talked about this. They interviewed me on the stream yesterday or on Sunday in Milwaukee. So if you already heard this, I'm sorry, but I tied a Lugia that I would have beaten if we had more time, and I also would have beaten in time if Cragalanche had not milled both of my energy recyclers out of a 7-card deck. I just needed one of the two. He hit both of them. But I still would have won because he was out of energies to retreat. So I rope Sableye, and then I just Sableye for 4 turns and clear his board, and take my last 4 prizes. But wasn't enough time, so we tied, that was definitely a bummer there. And I scooped game 2 pretty quickly in that one, so I don't even think there was like, maybe I could have made a decision or two or quicker in game 3 or something, I guess. But I don't know. Overall, pretty happy. Obviously, the deck is busted. As 3 of you guys made top 8, and Danny lost the winning end. So yeah, Ogre BDIF currently. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, definitely pretty good. Yeah, the list, we didn't change anything from the list as well. For anyone who didn't know, we changed 0 cards from Hartford to Milwaukee, because we felt like it was just good. Everything was ran smooth. We feel like we definitely could have done better at Hartford, like me specifically for sure. I was like, I definitely made quite a few mistakes, and even like this tournament, I actually really felt, even though like this was my deepest run in a little while. Um, I guess I maybe felt it in the other tournaments a little bit as well, but this tournament more so than most. I really felt the maybe because I went deeper. I played more games in one tournament, but I
Hmm.
really felt the impact of like basically testing 0 games, right?
Yeah.
And like me playing a couple games the night before the tournament's not going to change anything if we don't have an idea of anything to change. But like kind of not grinding games on PTCGO or PTCG Live at all, doing content stuff beforehand, or even just like try hard. The best quality of testing is like try hard testing against one of your testing partners. But kind of, I haven't done that kind of stuff for years now. Just because I don't have the time to, right, between like the contest stuff. But I really felt that this tournament where it's like for me to like kind of get to probably like peak performance, I'd have to be able to do that. But I don't think I'll ever actually be able to have the time to do that consistently throughout a year. Like for some tournaments, I definitely do have the time to do that. Like before
Yeah. You grind
OCIC,
really hard for the like ICs and stuff, it feels
yeah.
like.
But that's pretty much just because like we try and get to the ICs on like Monday or even a little bit before then. So we're there for like 4 or 5 days before the tournament happens. So we're grinding Pokemon. So, but yeah, besides that, there's not really many tournaments that actually grind games where I definitely felt it in my gameplay. Like there was definitely, I learned a lot about a couple of the matchups and stuff that I can apply to like the future, of course, or like throughout the tournament I was able to apply. But which I guess it's still like not bad though, right? Top 4 when I feeling like, the fact that I play 0 try hard games of testing, I felt like I could still get that far. It's still not bad, but um yeah, pretty successful weekend overall for the squad.
Yeah, one more thing before we get into the episode that I did. I guess we're 12 minutes in, so we're in the episode. But one other thing I wanted to mention, I want to give a shout out to one of my students, Cal, because he went 7-0 in the juniors division with Maridon of all things. Was super sick. I was super stoked for him to go on a deep run with the deck. He didn't even try to go 7-0 is the thing. It was like he got to round 6 and he was 5-0. He offered the ID to his opponent. Or I think that round he got down paired and had to play, or his
Yeah.
opponent felt like they had to play, maybe is what it
I feel
was.
like the parents, even in the parents and juniors, usually they're the ones who actually know. The kids have no clue.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just here to play Pokemon. I don't know if I should ID or not. And the parents like, you should ID this round. Your opponent
Yeah.
can ID with you. ID, ask them to ID. The parents are
Yeah.
the ones who are like steering the juniors into when to ID or when to play it out.
Yeah, and it's funny too
Um,
because I was like standing over there with his dad before like the pairings for the last round. Like I was waiting on my pairing for our round 7. Like I'm still alive in the tournament, right?
yeah,
And he's like, "Will you just like stand over just a second and like let's make sure that it because his I coach Cal's brother as well, Jesse, and they were like trying to make sure like what he was able to do because he was 5-1 going into the last round.
yeah.
Um but yeah, and then Cal he was 6-0 in the last round, and his opponent was 5-1 and could have ID'd to just get into cut, and Cal offered him the ID, and his opponent said, "Nope, I want to play." And then Cal just beat him.
7-0 with the Maride on.
It was so sick. He did lose in top 4, but still an awesome run. Yeah, proud of those kids. They're crushing it. But yeah, let's get into our episode here, Azul, and we're starting off on a bit of a somber note. There has been a loss in our family, and our family being the Pokemon community, and that loss being the Pokemon trading card game online. The servers have bit the dust. Servers are offline. Thank you for playing. The final message from Direwolf Digital, the developers of the game. It's a sad day. It's a sad day for the Pokemon community, Azul.
Yeah, you never really thought that this would be like, man, I wish it wasn't leaving. Like in my head, if I had to have guessed, back when a new Pokemon trading card game client would be announced, this date would have been a good riddance, not a
Yeah.
like finally the Pokemon Company or TPCI or whoever in this case TPCI has gone out of their way to get a new Pokemon trading card game client up and running, and now it's here, and now PTCGO is leaving. Thank goodness PTCGO is gone. But really, I just wish we still had PTCGO for forever, to be honest, if the alternative is PTCG Live, or at least until the point where PTCG Live feels as functional as PTCGO. But we're not there yet. And I mean, it's June 7th. It's June 6th right now. It's going to be June 7th when y'all are listening to us on the podcast. And June 8th is when PTCG Live is getting its official out of beta full release. So it doesn't feel like we're going to be there by the time, by, 48 hours.
Yeah, that's right. So the official release of Live is at the end of the week ahead of Paldea Evolved. Honestly, like it's a great time to release a new game right as a new set is dropping. The problem is that it's not going to be a new game. It's just going to be the exact same game with the word beta removed from it. So and that is evident from the was it patch notes, I guess, or like, yeah, I guess patch, yeah, update release notes that they posted for the release that just went live today, which is going to be the way the game is on official launch day. And there's no new features here, Azul. Absolutely no new features, no expanded or other options or I don't know. It's just the same game with the beta tag removed. There's a few updates to like some visual things, is what this says. Updates for the new expansion, obviously. Um, but yeah, I mean, it just is looks like just a normal beta update to me.
Yeah, and they don't even address like in the bug fixes, they don't address anything with Gardevoir, I believe. Like the fact of how slow it is to use Gardevoir's ability, and the fact that it bugs out a lot of the time and just kind of locks your game up, and you just can't play the game anymore for a couple different reasons. One of them is your opponent leaving the game because you're about to win the game with your last Gardevoir attack. They leave, you get stuck. If you try to Gardevoir a certain Pokemon that have been interacted with in certain ways, your game also freezes. So none of that looks like it's getting fixed. From what I can see, they still haven't fixed. This was like a bug back in February or something. The bug where when Genesect comes from the bench to the active, it makes the new Pokemon to the active
Yeah,
noise,
it's
even
any
when you
metal
have
Pokemon.
any metal Pokemon. Yeah, Genesect is the only relevant metal Pokemon. Yeah, any
Yeah,
metal
yeah,
Pokemon
yeah.
when it comes from the bench to the active, whenever a Pokemon goes from the bench to the active, it does the animation plus the sound effect. But if you have the sound effects muted, when a metal Pokemon still comes to the active, it still makes a noise. And it's like that's like a small thing, and so is like the idea of like, oh, when you use Gardevoir EX's ability and your opponent concedes, well, if you just quit your game, you still get the win. But like that's not an excuse. It like completely ruins your like mood and your kind
Yep.
of momentum in the game. It just makes you want to close the game and not play another game of Pokemon, right? Like you're sitting there chilling, listening to your music, and then a metal Pokemon comes to the active, and you hear the loud sound effect, and you're just like, bro, like that's just like it takes you out of the zone. And
Yeah.
when enough of those things kind of compile throughout like a single game of Pokemon or a couple games in a row of game-ending bugs, you just want to close it and just like not play anymore. There's nothing making you want to play another game of Pokemon based on how the game kind of flows and feels besides just playing Pokemon, where it's almost like you're forced to play it because it's the only way to play Pokemon online
And
or
there's still some
digitally.
really bad bugs in the game, and this is a big
Yeah.
one that Trust Your Pilot over on Twitter. He's been the one kind of leading the helm of the PTCG Live suffering, it feels like, over the last 12 months or so. But there's a bug currently where if a Pokemon was knocked out and comes back from the discard pile into play, in the Gardevoir deck, you cannot Psychic Embrace to it,
Yeah.
which is like a massive deal, especially with Super Rod coming out next week. That's kind of the big part, or I guess this week in like 2 days, right? And this is just still a bug that's not fixed. Now, maybe it's something with like Miriam or Clara, I guess, that's affecting this, but I don't know. Maybe people have tested it with Super Rod. I don't even think Super Rod's on the list of the expanded playable cards. I don't think they made it that far back, but um, with the little limited expanded format they have. But yeah, I mean, it's just more and more issues. And they did update some things, but it's like the stuff that they chose to update is it's like the priorities here feel so backwards. Like to me, the metal sound that you mentioned, Azul, like that should be super high priority to get fixed because it
Yeah.
is super I know you don't play that much TCG live anymore, but I get on and play my like I play like 1 or 2 games a
dailies.
day to just get my little crystals or whatever, and then I get out of there, turn off the game pretty much. Um, but yeah, the metal sound is like absolutely terrible whenever you have all sound effects muted. That should be like a top priority. And then they do something like this where they update the way that the energy looks on Pokemon when they're in play.
It looks
I
worse.
almost feel like it looks worse. Yeah.
The Lunatone seems to be of a higher resolution itself, which is definitely an improvement, but the energy just look worse. It looks like they're not they look like they're too separated. Like the tone is so off, it just looks like it's not part of the same game. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It looks like someone like copied like made it themselves in like they copy and pasted it. Like they put together like a meme where you like cut out a thing and stack it on top of something, but it's not like cohesive at all. That's what it looks like. So I haven't seen this myself because the new update is out right now, I believe actually.
It
So
is. Yeah.
so nothing's actually changing between now and June 8th. I said it's going to be ready by June 8th, but yeah, this is as ready as it is right now. I haven't gotten on and played. I don't know if it feels any different. It doesn't seem like it feels any different. And I think a sign that um, another sign that it's only headed in a worse and worse direction is everyone who was initially a defender of PTCG Live is kind of coming around a little bit. Maybe not as harshly as someone like myself or Mahone has been on PTCG Live or Trust Your Pilot, or even you.
Hmm.
You don't say as much, but I think you hold a lot of the same sentence. But Stabilize or Mitch put out a tweet kind of being like, all right, PTCG
Who
Live
Mitch,
is
by the way, has been like one of the biggest defenders of PTCG
yeah.
Live.
Now I will say though, I don't think Mitch would be as big of a defender. Mitch, I had a little bit of back and forth with Mitch early on in the beta, and one of the things that Mitch kind of brought up is that they've never played a Hearthstone or anything like that. So Mitch doesn't have a good thing to compare it to. I think if Mitch had played any of these other card game clients in the current day and age, they probably wouldn't feel as fine about it. But yeah, Mitch has been a huge defender of PTCG Live. But even Mitch put out a tweet the other day saying like still the credit system and all that stuff, and no one thinks that stuff is bad. Like it feels like that's people's always defense point. But I get a free Lugia deck, or
Hmm.
I can make my decks easier. It's like no one thinks that's bad. Everyone
Yeah.
thinks that's good, but every game just kind of does that. It's all games are more accessible than PTCGO ever was, right?
Yeah.
PTCGO was the least accessible card game client ever. Every card game client made after PTCGO has always been more accessible than PTCGO. So PTCG Live being more accessible than PTCGO isn't a win for PTCG Live. It's just an expectation of making a card game client in 2023. Of course, I do think PTCG Live is way more accessible than most, if not all, other card game clients. But it doesn't excuse poor gameplay, and that's what Mitch kind of like says in their tweet. Basically, like obviously free cards are cool, easy to get cards are nice. But even then, I still see people complain all the time about. Now, I don't have this problem because I got 400 packs of whatever the set was. So I have like infinite credits, but I still see people complain all the time about how it's still pretty hard to like free to play PTCG Live. So I don't know what that kind of situation is like overall, to be honest, because I haven't done that at all or don't interact with PTCG Live enough to know. But Mitch did state, and this has been my problem with PTCG Live, Mahone's problem, most people's problems with PTCG Live is the gameplay and playing the actual game of Pokemon just feels terrible. And a couple points that like Mitch makes in their massive Twitter thread is just like the improvements are slow, if non-existent. When you compare it, like Mitch said, they went back and looked at some of their PTCGO videos, and like the flow of the game is just so much more slower and agonizing on PTCG Live than PTCGO. And PTCGO had problems. Like PTCGO was already the least intuitive card game client that you could play in 2020 or 2021, right back when it was before we even had PTCG Live, or actually when I don't even remember what that was, but whatever. It was already the slowest, least
Hmm.
intuitive card game client out there, and then we got PTCG Live, which is up the ante, which is like just blows my mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is what we're gonna be. There's no sign of the end here, right? Like, I mean, this is like
Yeah,
this is the ship that we are sailing on right now, right? It might feel like it's a sinking ship. It's barely staying afloat. And Azul and I agree with like the positive things that everyone points out. Like
yeah, yeah,
the credit system is far better than it's way easier to get cards on live than it was on TCGO. And honestly, like I've played some of the other card games, it feels even easier on live than like Yu-Gi-Oh, Master Duel, or Duel
yeah,
Links, or Magic Arena even. But which is like massive credit to Pokemon for doing that. But like, so I played an opponent during the early rounds in Milwaukee, and we were just kind of chit chatting during our game or after our game. He didn't know who I was, but like someone at like the table next to us, like um said hello to me and like said that they liked my commentary and stuff like that. And so like then he like kind of he didn't know who I was, but like he was like, "Oh, so you do like stuff with Pokemon?" And then he like asked me what I thought about TCG Live. And this is a guy who's been playing the game since like October, he told me.
Mhm.
And I was like, I mean, I think the game could be a lot better. There's like, some things I like about it, but uh I think that it does not feel like a great way to play the Pokemon TCG. And he was like, I just really wish that I could buy crystals or credits so I could get more cards. That's like what his
Yeah.
that's like what his comment was about it. Um and it's like
And,
that's
like
something that would be so easy for them to implement. And I know like a lot of people, when you add something like that where like you give a paid option, they like go to like the pay to win mentality. But the reality of it is that if there is a way for if they could make money on this game, which they could make a lot of money on this game, if they could make money on this game, then they're theoretically more incentivized to make it good, to make it better,
yeah.
because it's a way for them to generate revenue. And this is something like Pokemon is the largest franchise in the world. That's something everyone always goes back to. Pokemon cards are the most collectible, it feels like, in like the modern day right now. You would get so many people trying to like get their online collection up, and you could make so like they could generate so much revenue from this and make it a genuinely amazing game. And that's just not what we have.
Yeah, and they could even keep it at, like, a super they could keep it at, like, the current rate or even make it easier to get cards. Like, maybe they find the perfect formula in the current system to, like, make it really easy to get cards for everyone who, like, plays the game a decent amount. But then even on top of that, you could still just charge for packs. I think their thought process was, like, people would go to code sites, but no one wants to go to a code site to buy a bunch of codes
No.
when they could just buy packs on the client. No, just ma why would you not wanna make the process easier for your consumer? And you can still make like I said, you can still make it super easy to get cards. You don't have to have some kind of was it gotcha kind of predatory microtransaction system in PTCG Live. You can just be like, it's really easy to get cards. There's no reason for you to spend money, but if you want to spend money, we'll let you spend money, right? Like I think a lot of people want that. A lot of people don't want to have to go to a code site to get codes, to input codes, when for the
Yeah.
same price or the
And
same
probably like
ratio of value, they could just spend instead of $10 on codes, they get the same value by just spending $10 in the client.
yeah, and like so many people probably don't even know. Like I think we like tend to forget or underestimate the amount of people who just play the Pokemon games, like kids sitting at home on their iPad, right? Or like even like just whoever sitting at home on their iPad that's not involved in the competitive, like they've got no idea who we are. They've got no idea that competitive Pokemon TCG exists. They just went to the App Store one day, searched up Pokemon, found this PTCGO and started playing, or PTCG Live and started playing. Like that is a huge number of people who play the game for sure. Um, like, even, like, on PTCGO as the game was shutting down, it was kind of a sad thing to watch on Twitter, people's, like, tweets that, the developers left a little message up there, "Thanks for playing, the servers are shutting down in a few minutes." But there's, like, the public trading post chat on PTCGO that a lot of people use to, like, talk to other players in the game. I remember seeing someone screenshot on Twitter where someone in that was posted like, "Wait, what is happening?" Like they they had a rude awakening, I think, that day that the game that they were playing was not going to exist for much longer.
Yeah, one thing I've always said is like you can't replace uh it's like the analogy I kind of did with it's like they gave us a bike but it has square wheels, right? You're not going to ride a bike with square wheels for very long, even if it's a free bike, right? And that's kind of what we're seeing happen here with more and more people who are kind of defenders of PTCG Live turning it over and be like, all right, I can only play this for so long. The gameplay is miserable and not improving, right? And
Yeah.
so we see like pretty much everyone who was or most or more people who are initially defenders of PTCG Live for X or Y reason are all changing their tune because it's like, sure, you get a free Lugia deck, but just because you have a free Lugia deck doesn't mean you're going to use it. And once you realize you're not playing PTCG Live because it's not enjoyable, who cares if you have a free Lugia deck, right? And that's kind
Yeah,
of
I
where we're
think
at right
Mahone
now.
even put a Twitter poll out the other day that was like, "I have played more or
Yeah.
less." Hang on, I'm gonna pull it up. But it was like basically just, dude, it's so hard to find people on Twitter. There we go. Oh, I literally type in his exact at.
I think you miss. Just put Andrew Mahone. It'll come up.
You would think, right?
Sheesh.
Dude, Twitter, man, it's just something.
Why
But
is
I'll
it
pull it up.
so
But pretty much
hard?
he just put out a tweet asking like, have you played more or less Pokemon since transferring your account over to PTCG Live? And it was like overwhelmingly less.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's playing less. Mahone's playing less. As far as content creators go, um, I don't know. I think LDF is probably still putting out the same amount of live content, but Mahone's been doing a lot more
Yeah,
tabletop
LDF is
stuff.
a grinder, dude.
Mahone's
Mad
been doing a lot
props to
more.
LDF, honestly. He is a grinder.
Yeah, Mahone's been doing a lot more tabletop. I've been doing just a lot more other stuff in general. I still get on live. I mean, last time I was on live was last time I like made content around live because I still use live for coaching. Was like, has it been like it's been like 3 weeks? It'll be
Dude,
like a
how do
month
you do
maybe.
coaching on live, man? I could not do it anymore. You have a 30-second timer. How do you teach anyone anything?
Well, it's not that difficult. It depends. Sometimes like I go through like other things with like the AI bot or whatever, depending on the situation. But
Sure.
I might start trying to transition more of it over to the tabletop simulator for sure. I think it might be a little bit more productive, definitely. So yeah, that's something I have like self to figure out. I still like learn all the hotkeys and stuff for that. But yeah, live's a mess. I don't think anything has changed. Everyone's kind of coming around and changing their tune, which is good to see. Because I think at some point, maybe if there's enough pushback, we'll see a difference, right? Maybe that'll lead to more of a difference. The only like shred of hope I think that remains is I remember seeing this somewhere. Someone said I was wrong for this, but I'm pretty sure I did see this somewhere. Is that Pokemon said one reason they're just like shutting down PTCGO seemingly ahead of schedule is because they want to devote those resources towards PTCG Live. They said that somewhere, right? There was an article somewhere where they made that
I'll see if I can find
statement.
it.
Um, I'm almost positive that was said somewhere. But yeah, that's like the last shred of hope is like, but we haven't seen that implemented yet. It doesn't seem like anything is being done at a faster rate yet. But maybe we'll see that hit finally, you know, next month, the month after. Maybe that's they've been building it. They've been utilizing those because they probably I don't know. We're literally waiting for the moment that they stop paying Direwolf, which is literally I don't know, probably last month or something. I don't know. And now they're gonna hire more
Well,
people or something.
the
Like I don't
thing
know what the
is,
transition is, but
well, Direwolf, I think, is still because Direwolf did a thing. Uh, Direwolf has a lot to do with the um
codes.
Yeah, the code development, right?
I'm sure they
So I
probably
think they're
bought it from
still
them
doing
and
stuff. Yeah, so on the
maybe
TCG Live Sunset information page, it says, well, TCG Live will remain active until June 5th, 2023. No new Pokemon TCG products cards or deck accessories have been added to the game since March 1st. This change ensures that more development resources are dedicated to making TCG Live the best experience possible for players.
this was all the way back in March
Th-
or April.
This was
When was this?
updated May 3rd.
May 3rd. Oh, okay. So they haven't this has been okay, so they had like a month or maybe 2 months because they maybe put this out after a month. So, but we haven't seen any of that yet, right? We haven't seen better, faster updates, the game actually improving fundamentally as far as the gameplay goes. We haven't seen any of that happen. So we haven't seen the improvement of more resources being dedicated to PTCG Live being taken away from PTCGO. And now PTCGO is gone. So I wonder how long we'll have to wait to actually see an improvement or if we see an improvement at all from this statement here. But who knows? But yeah, I think we can go ahead and move on.
Yep.
It's kind of like we're beating a dead horse at this point for sure. And I think the only thing we can hope for from here is that the
Dude,
last
this
couple
horse has
defenders,
rotted.
yeah, the last couple defenders of PTCG Live switch change their tune, and then if we have everyone kind of unified against or PTCG Live being so poor, maybe they actually commit some more resources to PTCG Live because it doesn't seem like they've done anything as far as that goes. It seems like it's been the same very slow progress of simply trying to keep up with bugs that each new set releases. Right, Guard Genesec's been bugged since February 2nd or February. I was like saying second, the second month of the year.
Mhm.
And then Guardy's been bugged since release, right? And Guardy hasn't been fixed. And the new set's about to drop. And who knows what bugs this new set will bring. And they haven't even fixed all the current bugs in the thing. And that's what this is what I've said that for so long. This is like what I feared. It would just be like an infinite loop of new set releases, new bugs. New bugs aren't fixed before new set releases, and it just like compiles and they can't keep up ever. But we did have some major tournaments, thankfully IRL, not on PTCG Live this weekend. And we're going to start by talking about what was I want to look at? Was want to look at
Yeah, I think we're gonna go
Turin first,
smallest
right?
to largest. So there was a
Yeah.
special event in Turin, Italy. There was a regionals in Santiago, Chile, and the regionals in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Azul and I both were at. So we're going to start with the special event in Turin, which was won by Maximilian with Lugia. So what's interesting here as well is that there were two Lugia in top 8. I mean, we can kind of talk about all of them at the same time, but
Yeah.
mostly focus on one at a time. There were two Lugia in top cut of Turin, but there were no Lugia in top 8 of either of the other two tournaments. What do you make of that?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think in Milwaukee, like the Lugias weren't too far behind. There's like a lot of them in like the top
Yeah.
32,
There's
right?
3 in top 16 as
Um,
well.
yeah. Also, like some of our uh most notable North American Lugia mains, like Reagan and Grant Shen, had a rough day one. They weren't even in day two. So like, you know, I think a lot of the better players as well, I think kind of shifted a little bit more towards playing Lost Box and Mew. That's always going to be like a factor as well, right? So that's part of it. But I don't think it's anything to read in too much. I think Lugia is still going to be one of the most popular decks. And yeah, it did show up in like it didn't do terrible in Milwaukee. There was just none in top 8. Um, and then we don't really have too much results from Santiago, so who knows where Lugia kind of falls outside of there being 0 in the top 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, Torrent did show up and it got the dub, which isn't like a surprise, and I don't think it's like anything to be like worried about that it didn't show up too heavily in the other two events.
Yeah, and I think the only so pretty much the main list that everyone's basing their list on is
The Reagan list.
the Reagan list. Yeah, that's
And
what
this
we've
is
been
the
calling it, the Reagan list. And this is the Reagan list minus
Reagan
Penny
list.
plus Thornton. Yep.
Oh yeah, just the penny to Thornton change. And Thornton's kind of cool. It's like a little bit I mean it guarantees the recovery of your Urshifu, which is nice, right? Whereas like Penny is like if they hit it and don't KO it, I can penny it. Whereas Thornton guarantees, you get Urshifu back and play and get
Ooh, yeah.
rolling
Maybe
again.
that is a little bit better if you're expecting a bit more of the Arctura deck in the meta.
The Arc deck is like kind of the one that can KO it. But up against like Gudra and stuff and the other matchups, you want to be able to like potentially penny it. Because one thing weird that can happen is like they can hit it and then they can not KO it. And they just
Yeah.
leave it. And they're like, okay, if you evolve it, now I'm going to KO you. If you don't evolve it, then well, you can't use your Urshifu VMAX. And they like use rope or boss to get around it again and like leave it in play as a Urshifu V with a bunch of damage on it. So that's like the value of the penny versus the Thorin. But yeah, exactly. Just the exact same, just the Reagan 60 or whatever you want to call it. And Thorin's still a really good liability remover, right? You can penny Illuminion,
Hmm.
you can Thorin your Illuminion into a Serena or something and remove the liability of that as well. So it does the kind of it can do like the same thing that Penny does as far as that goes as well. So pretty similar cards in their roles.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And on Limitless, it'll tell you who has played a certain deck, like all the finishes of a certain deck. So if we look at like Hartford, where Grant, Shin, and Reagan got top 4. If you click on their deck, it'll tell you the deck list was played by and at what tournament. The list is just massive for this deck. So many players at so many tournaments, just because of how like
Did Mac?
refined it
Oh yeah,
feels
the
like this
other
list
right.
has become, right? And
Yeah,
I wonder if there's oh, I just clicked on someone's name on accident. I wonder if there's a list on Limitless that has more plays, like more entries on the website than this deck. Like
yeah.
there's probably not many, right? If anything.
I don't think so. It'd be cool if there was a filter to like do it like one card different, two card different, three card different. So Robin, if you're out there and you're listening and
Oh
you
my gosh.
need another
Azul's
if you're
just
looking
trying to
for
give Robin so many projects, bro.
I'm just saying if you got the free time and you just want to like you're like, what else could I add to Limitless? Putting a little like deck list played by, if you put a little like thing there, and you could be like a card difference of one or you could like change it to one or two or three or four. Because I think that would be good that would be cool information to have. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
we obviously see like the power of the Reagan list. And we see the other results from it, but it'd be like, okay, if people are changing just like the Thornton, that's so much more information to work with and be like, okay, it truly is pretty much everyone playing the exact same 60, right? So I'd like to know if like how many other people are doing how successfully people are with just a one card difference or a two card difference would be interesting for sure. So
Azul's just the ultimate ideas guy.
yeah, I can't do any of this, but and then I guess we could mention the other Lugia list, which is basically once again very close, but this one is actually interesting. It's got a lost vacuum.
Mhm.
Like all the Lugia lists are very close to this one, of course. Lost vacuum or
Oh,
what I would say is like
research.
only two earn. There's a lost vacuum
Yeah.
and there's the impact energy in here.
Yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
haven't been blown away by the impact energy in my testing with Lugia. It feels like you always like the earns plus a single strike. It just kind of works out where you never need the impact,
Yeah, I
and you just
agree.
always have to find an earn anyways, and that'll get you there in almost every single game you play with the deck. So I'm not a huge fan of the impact energy. And the lost vacuum is interesting as well. I don't even know like why you would want. Oh, there's no Pumpkaboo. But why wouldn't you just want another collapsed stadium? Is there like a tool card? You really like another collapsed stadium seems so much better if you're not going to play the Pumpkaboo.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, maybe like a preemptive vacuum against a seal stone that hadn't been used because they wouldn't be
I
expecting
guess,
it,
yeah.
right? To like catch someone off guard. A seal stone and like if you judge vacuum against a lost box that's trying to like prep
Ooh.
against
Or if you play
uh
against a Mew and they still
yeah.
have their V-Star power, but there's no way you're hitting this combination of
Yes.
cards. You also
Yes,
only have
that is
one
the
judge.
issue.
Like this list also only has
Okay.
one judge. So it's not like you're disrupting Lost Box very aggressively anyway. So
Yeah, that's
yeah, the
interesting for sure.
vacuum feels a little bit off. But yeah, that's the other Lugia. And
Dude,
then
both the another thing about my tournament, both the Lugias I played against had double collapsed. That was
yeah.
annoying.
I
All
mean, it makes
right.
sense. Good against Lost Box.
Yep.
The rest of the top 8 though, nothing too sus. We got
Yeah.
a couple Lost
Leon,
Box. Go ahead.
after winning a
Oh,
regionals earlier this year,
yeah.
getting second place at a special event with Mew once again.
Yeah, and this list, very similar to the kind of the build that Leon was playing previously, just like in terms of just trying to be as straightforward and consistent as possible. Because like during this time, we saw a lot of people doing, or during that time, we saw a lot of people doing like the Mew Aerodactyl stuff, and Leon was like, nah. What if we just like played like a path build, like super straightforward? And then they won the regional after San Diego regional in Europe. I forget which one it was. But now here they are again with
Liverpool.
another, yeah, Liverpool. Here's another super straightforward Mew build. And the build that actually won San Diego regionals as well was a super straightforward build. And another super straightforward build, not getting the dub this time for Leon, but second place, still pretty good. And yeah, just Path and Mew doing it again.
Yep. Path Judge Mew. Path and Judge is a powerful combo, and it's gonna win you some amount of games and get you potentially to the finals. We've got a couple lost box in here as well. I guess we'll mention quickly the other. There's two other Mew decks. One of them being Fusion Mew. The other DTE build, also pretty similar. Did have the Lost City in here. Also, oh no, Azul. They, don't get me started, bro. They had the Arvin. What are we doing, man?
Yeah,
Arvin and
I don't know about
Mew.
the Arvin. And we did see this is the only Fusion Mew in top 8. And actually Fusion Mew in general didn't really show up at Milwaukee too
Yeah.
heavily. Not it was like if anything, it was about 50-50. Like didn't show up any better. Santiago, there was no Mews in Top Cut. And this was more of like the hybrid build of the Fusion Mew, not like kind of the turbo build that we saw Rowan play. This is like the build that we saw last play with the judges in the past. Only one judge in this build, but there's an Avery as well. Maybe for the mirror match there. Got the Avery in there for the mirror match. So, Avery plus Path or just Avery in general plus knockout. You remove 3 Pokemon from a Fusion Strike player's board. That's
Yeah.
a lot of
Pretty strong.
draw power taken away, right? So a little bit more on the hybrid build though, yeah, for sure. And that's the build I think I prefer for the Fusion Mew as well, is like the hybrid. Still trying to be disruptive as possible while still pulling off that turn 1 attack with the Meloetta or
Yeah, I feel
Deoxys.
like Avery's like a sneaky good card right now, right? It's
Nah.
just there's not a
Nope.
great deck. Oh, you say nah?
No, it's terrible.
Oh my gosh.
Unless Guardy's like 20% again, I don't think it's worth playing. It is like kind of cool in mirror, but like it's bad in Lugia matchup. It's bad against Lost Box. Yeah, there's just too many bads. I don't think the goods will outweigh the. It's bad against Arceus decks. Like there's nothing against Arceus
Yeah, it's
decks.
pretty good against Mew. It's pretty good against Lost Box. It's pretty good against Gardevoir. Yeah, I mean, those are
Like
all
Avery is not good against Lost Box. It does nothing. You just discard
well,
like a Comfy.
yeah, which is like draw
It's
power
yeah, but
and
you didn't disrupt their hand. They would much rather get Avery
well, of
than Judge.
course. Yeah, you go Avery then Judge, right?
Then it's not pretty good. It's just worse. Like, it's not good against Lost
Also,
Box.
Avery, I will say one thing.
Oh
Huh?
no, go ahead. You got some more, Chip. Go ahead.
One other, I mean,
Avery over Arvin though, at least.
oh, 1,000%. No, Avery, something you can do with Avery against Lost Box is one of the things Lost Box will do a lot of the time is specifically Kyogre, I guess, is take 2 prizes with one of their 2 prize Pokemon. So take out a Mew V or a Genesect and then fill their bench so you can't Echoing Horn.
True.
But if you Avery and then Echoing Horn, that Pokemon's stuck in play, and then that's 2 prizes you can take to put them on a turn earlier clock. You
But
obviously can't.
then
You
you
can't.
didn't judge, and then they just Kyogre for
Oh
game on
my
the next
gosh.
turn.
Okay, okay.
So it's kind of unfortunate, but your plan almost worked. But you forgot that they just win because you didn't judge them.
It's just not that simple, man. It's just not that simple.
Dude, I beat a Mew. I think Caleb did this or someone else. I beat a Mew in 3 turns. It was like turn 1, go
Okay.
fast. Turn 2, Dragonite 2. Turn 3, Kyogre for 4. Yeah, we
That
were in
just shouldn't
turns.
happen with our
We
deck,
were
man.
we were headed into turns, and I was like, okay, go through my first turn. Time's called on their turn, so their turn 0. So I was like, I have 2 turns to win this game. So Dragonite, next turn, Kyogre, game over. It would have actually been funny.
Disgusting.
It's kind of funny
That's
because
highway robbery right there. The fact that you won that game. I feel sorry for your opponent. Someone go back on PokeStats Live and figure out who it was and send them flowers.
And then to close out the rest of the top 8, there was another path Mew. Oh, we looked at this one already with the Arvin, and then there was just the Arctina. Arctina was in there, and we saw Tina decks show up. This one Arctina here. Besides that, there's a couple Tinas scattered throughout day 2. There's some or Arc decks, excuse me, a couple Arc decks. I will mention there's like no Lost Zone Tina. I'm just gonna put that out there. Is there any Lost Zone Tina even in like day 2 of? Oh, there's one in top 8 of Santiago, I take it back. But like in Milwaukee day 2, is there even an Arc Tina? Is there Arc or a Lost Zone Tina? There's one. I see one. That's it. That's all I just wanted to say. But yeah,
Why
one
is
Arc
that?
deck in the top 8 here. Well, I think Lost Zone Tina is still a terrible deck.
Interesting.
um,
But
yeah,
yeah,
Tina
we
did show
can
up in the top 8 here at at
at
Turin.
Santiago.
Yeah, and I think the only other notable thing is
Oh,
a couple
Arctina.
Sables Arts
Okay.
were close. Andre and Pedro, two very notable players. Of course, the world champion Andre, very close to that top 8 as well with some Sables Arts. So Sables Arts still out there, still proven. It's a very low played deck, I feel like right now. So that's still like a decent result to in top. Especially when it is piloted by 2 of the best players in Europe, that kind of almost detracts from its success because it's like, well, I mean, obviously, like these players being in top 16 or even in top 8 is like not a big deal. Imagine if they had played a real deck, right, or a better deck. Maybe Sables are just is holding them back more so than anything.
Listen, man, Sablezard is still solid, and
I
like,
do like Sables Art. I'm just kind of joking.
yeah. I mean, I think it has a decent mirror match, right? Like,
Yeah, the mirror
or
match is kind of a
like other, I guess, other Lost Box matchup. Now, looking at Pedro's PokeStats Live, he actually did not play against. He played against one other Lost Box deck, two other Lost Box decks, and then a
yeah,
Sablezard mirror against Andre.
a lot of Mew.
Yeah, and tied the win in it looks like as well.
I
Almost made the
3.
win in it. Almost made it into cut at 9-0-5. Come on, Pedro. We got to pick up the pace here, buddy.
Yeah, what are these 5 ties? 4 in a row? 4, dude, that would be like
I
so
feel like if we look, dude,
demoralizing.
I'm not gonna put Pedro on blast right now. I love Pedro. Pedro's the man, but I'm pretty sure if we look back, like, yeah. Oh no, this one's only 3. That's not that bad. Oh, it
Have you
was
seen a lot?
Oceania. Oceania, he tied 5 times as well.
Well,
We
some of
gotta
those might have
scoop
been
some. We gotta
intentional,
scoop
right?
some game 2s in here,
That
Pedro.
one
Come
against
on,
Reagan
man.
maybe was intentional at the end there, right? Round 14, right? Yeah, that one might have
Oh,
been intentional.
yeah. Sure. Some of these are
Yeah.
IDs. Some of these are IDs. Yeah. I wasn't sure what you were saying at first, but yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of been one of my goals recently. Is just the only ties I want to have are intentional ties. In this tournament, I was able to accomplish. I was 11-2 before I ID'd twice in Milwaukee. Speaking of Arcdex, I was kind of fumbling over my words earlier, but yeah, basically Lost Tina sucks. But Arcdex we were talking about, there was 2 more Arcdex in top 8 of the Santiago regional championships. We have very few lists here, but it was won by some Arc decks did okay. Guardy did really well here actually, and there was a Lost Zone Tina did squeak in there, but that's probably fake. And then 2 Lost Zone decks. But yeah, Lost Zone or Mew or Guardy Mewtwo v Union was the champion. Pedro Petrucci, probably the most consistent Latam player this season, I want to say.
Yeah. I think
Don't
he's
quote
ranked
me on
1
that,
for
but
sure.
yeah, but Pedro definitely, I think by far the most consistent Latam player this season. Yeah, we haven't seen this deck do this. I think this is definitely its best finish ever. But in general, we haven't seen it do too well at all recently. Does it have a top 8 besides this?
Maybe not. Let's actually I think we can check
And
if
Pedro's
we
been
click
playing this
on
for
the
a while.
deck right
Pedro was playing
here.
this back
Yeah.
at EUIC. I think Pedro's basically played this
It
at every
got top
tournament.
16 in Malmo. It had a couple day 2s in Portland, but that is pretty much it. EUIC, there was a couple, one in Pedro getting top 16 with it at
Yeah.
EUIC. So I mean, this has been his go-to deck, excuse me. But yeah, like you mentioned, Pedro definitely one of the most consistent players in Latin America this year. I was actually going to pull up the leaderboard real quick, but yeah, getting the win with the Guardian Mewtwo. There's no Klefki in here, so I
No
think
keys.
that's been the way people have been saying that you need to play Guardy if you want to beat Lost Box is you have to cram Mewtwo in there, but you also have to cram the keys in there. But Pedro did not do that. He just got the Mewtwo V Union in here, which I think is like it's just a generally powerful card, right? Like if you get it all in the discard pile and you get it set up, this thing has 2 super strong attacks, really 3 super strong. Honestly, all 4 of the attacks are good, but uh, the 2 main ones being the spread 16 and then the just clean 300 damage, super strong attacks. Um,
10 HP. Well, I guess your HP comes down a little bit usually, but
right.
still have a decent amount of HP. Yeah, I mean, it's a good closure into every single matchup theoretically. It's just, is it worth it to get those things in the discard pile, then get them into play? Having 4 effective dead cards until potentially the late game. Is that worth the trade-off of playing the card? And you can do some cool stuff in the mirror match as well, where you like Roxanne, and then you KO their attacker, plus you KO like a curly off the bench to limit their draw power. But there's no path in this build, which is you usually combo that with a path. I was surprised to actually see no path in here. So I'm not really sold on the Mewtwo V Union being better than the straightforward build. I do kind of like the Drapion though. They gave up on the Sky Seal Stone, but they made sure they have an aggressive prize trade up against the Mew matchup with the Drapion. So you can go like turn
Yeah.
1 or turn 2 going first, Drapion swing, plus like continue to set up the rest of your board, and then you just trade out from there. So the Drapion's really cool, actually. I really like the Drapion in there.
Yeah,
But
Drapion one hit KO one, Zacian one hit KO another, right? Like
yeah,
that's
you
the
got
way to do
some
it. There is
special
only
plays.
one rare candy in this list.
Yeah, so not trying to be too aggressive. I almost feel like the Dark Candy's probably there as like a, well, you have the 4 Seal Stone to work with as well, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, but maybe it's more of like a fallback of like, okay, I need like a late game Guardy, and I didn't get all my rolls out turn 1 or turn 2. So now that I've gotten rolls off the prize cards, or finally drawn into it, had bench space for it, this can still become a guard for in the late game or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That makes more
Um,
sense.
So yeah, the Mewtwo build finally getting its day. Is it worth it though? I'm not definitely not convinced. It's it- like straightforward Guardy seems like it's definitely good. I don't think Mewtwo Union consistently has like a place in the meta to kind of like be like, oh, I'm also a good deck alongside it. It's just kind of like, the best player in LATAM right now chose to play Guardy Mewtwo Union. It almost feels like more so than anything.
Well, speaking of Guardy winning tournaments, it was also the victor over in Milwaukee, and it was not an American player winning. It was Henry Brand coming from Australia, coming from down under. Henry's just gonna try to run a gauntlet of American tournaments here these next few weeks. He's going to Fresno, I heard this week, and then he's
hmm
gonna obviously be at NAIC in a couple of weeks. So I mean, starting the trip off strong, I would say getting first place, 1,100 person tournament, winning 5K. Congratulations to Henry. Unfortunately, did take down Caleb, our friend and testing partner, in the finals, but it is with a pretty clean, consistent Guardy list. Yeah, I don't know. Did have a couple interesting texts here. Has the choice belt and the Serena, 2 cards that not everyone plays. Did sacrifice a little bit of consistency for it though. The 2 research being the cuts there,
Big
so
hit,
only
yeah.
2 research.
Yeah, I actually I don't know, I had a reason why I actually didn't like the choice belt. I had like I forget what it is. It does some cool stuff with Guardy EX. It allows you to like to KO certain stuff with Guardy EX, like chase Vs, take
Hmm.
that knockout, and then put yourself in a situation where you just can't get KO'd back in a couple matchups.
Yeah,
Um, and then it does allow the baby Guardy to reach with choice belt to actually reach for knockouts against Lugia. A little bit more easily as well. So if you're trying to take down a T-Tar with a T-Tar or a Lugia with a one prizer, because there's once again no Sky Seal Stone in here, so that becomes like more of a relevant thing to try and do probably in that matchup is to attack with the one prizer of the Shiny Arcana Gardevoir as opposed to attacking with his Zacian. Because Lugia can sometimes just get ahead in the prize trade, and if you don't have this Sky Seal Stone to make the comeback, then you need to attack with the one prizer. Um, but sometimes you can't reach those numbers without a little bit extra, especially up against like the Lugia V Star. So he's a little bit extra push sometimes in that matchup as well. But yeah, I mean, not too much to say, right? Straightforward Guardy, kind of what Tord kind of popularized, and then a couple changes from that EUIC build, and then yeah,
hmm
Henry gets the dub, and is actually pushing for potentially push into that top 4, one of those top 4 slots for the World's Travel
for
Award Day 2
Australia.
invite from the Australian players. Because right now it's looking like Brent, Natalie, Matthew Burris, and then Tim Franklin, and then Henry's just behind Tim by 35 points. It looks like right now. I assume this is with the update. I think it's the updated leaderboard. So Henry's creeping up there, and then Angus Johnson and Jeremy Lim not too far behind. But I don't know how many of them are actually coming to NAIC. So Henry's here right now, going to be playing in Fresno. I don't think any of the other Australian players are coming to Fresno. I could be wrong on that. And I don't know how many of them are coming to NAIC. So
Well, I would say at least these 4 most likely: James Williams, Derek Dowd, Natalie Miller, Brent Tonneson, because they'll have the
yeah,
top 4 travel award. But outside of that, I mean, $1,000 is not enough to get to for the top 16, really, to get to a full paid trip to NAIC. But
yeah, it's
from
tough
all
to
the way in
come.
Australia, it's tough.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough for the Australians to get over here for sure, or just get trying to kind of get out of Australia. To be honest, not even just to come to North America. They just can't escape. It's just too expensive.
I
They're
mean, it
stuck
is an
there.
island. They're trapped down there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of swimming.
It definitely is.
Well,
I was gonna
yeah.
say
So,
rest of Milwaukee.
well, I wanted
Ooh,
to ask about
go ahead. I actually
with
forgot about
Guardy
the
what your
Argentina
thoughts
ending.
are. What I wanted to ask what your thoughts are, kind of with Guardy, because before the tournament, we both kind of felt like Sky Sealstone was just too big of a swing card to lose in favor of the Forest Sealstone.
Yeah,
But it really feels like everyone has started to favor the Forest Sealstone. What are your
yeah.
thoughts kind of on that? I mean, are you on board now after seeing these results that Forest Seal might just have to be the way?
It might be. The Lugia matchup is the main reason I always liked the Sky Seal Stone. I think that probably is its strongest matchup. The Mew matchup can come up as well, but it's a little bit less relevant for Mew, and less relevant against Mew if they are playing the Fusion build as well. So against the
Yeah.
Fusion build, you'd rather just be more consistent. How many cards do you really want to tech towards? You know, just that matchup. So it really is the Lugia matchup that I feel like is the biggest deal there. Um, I still really like it for that matchup, but it's not Lugia's not that big of a percentage of the meta. It was like 24% in day 2 though, right? I don't think I'm
Yeah, Lugia was the most popular deck in day 2 of Milwaukee, and we can go ahead and take a look at the I'll
kind of
pull up.
surprising then that one didn't even make top 8 then, to be honest.
Yeah, it
Um,
is really surprising because it did have a really good conversion rate as well. It was 15% in day 1, and then it jumped up to the first most played 24% in day 2.
yeah, Lost
Definitely
Box and Mew
super
staying about the
popular.
same. And then to
Mhm.
no one's surprise, Maridon leaves the uh the day 1 graphic going into day 2. But there
Yeah,
was
I'm
some
just kinda
really
surprised that it's still so popular in day 1, honestly, like
I mean, it's a cool deck. It's a fun deck. It's a little bit different, but it's not terrible. And we did see, like, I played against Wesley at like round 11 or 12, who was like 9-2 with Maridon.
yeah, he finished top
Um,
16.
going into day 2, I think there was a couple Maridons towards the top of the day 2.
Yeah,
Couple
Jose
Maridons towards
Marzan
the
also
top.
got top 32. Maybe he got like 36th or something like that. I want to say. I think he was like just outside of top 32, maybe.
Yeah. So, yeah, I still don't think the deck is great.
Yeah.
Um, I almost wonder if like if you're gonna play Forest Seal Stone and Guardy, I guess it'd be hard to argue to add a second Forest Seal Stone, but I could see you adding a second Forest Seal
Have you
Stone,
seen
right?
this list from Jose?
What?
It's
That is a
four
that's a
Miraidon, two Raikou, and then three Mew, and that is it.
what do you? My question is, what are you beating besides Lugia with this deck and Mew?
You're just hard. You hit hard and you hit consistently, I guess, right? I mean,
Yeah, but most
this
builds
definitely
already
seems
do
like a
that.
go second build, right? Like you're going second and you're doing 220 on turn 1, like every game.
Yeah, this list is wild for sure. This list is kind of this is kind of insane. Who played
Yeah,
this?
Jose Marzan
Yeah, this list is definitely crazy. You do have the 4 switch card in there, so I guess you have and a penny. There's a
and
penny in
four
there.
cross switcher.
I mean, the cross switchers are not saving you against Lost Box. I'm trying to think of like how you beat anything
Oh,
that's
oh,
not Mew or how do you beat anything that's not Mew or Lugia? You
well,
even have the Echoing Horn there for the Lugia matchup as well, which is kind of cool.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess
I'm
maybe switch cards plus penny could get you there against Lost Box. Seems kind of tough, but
gonna pull up
it'd
the
be a route.
Pokestats live and we'll see what he beat and what he didn't beat.
Yeah, that one seems that's cool. That's cool. Like I like seeing builds like this. Like I don't think they're that good. Like I don't think it's like a great deck or anything like that, but cool to see. People still get creative. Yeah, a lot of mirror matches, a couple mirrors in there. Yeah, mirrors. Beat up on some Mews, beat up on some Lugias. Did lose to the Lost Box they played against. There's a couple unidentified decks in there as well.
I think Adam Reinhart was playing Miraidon. I know Adam. He always plays Miraidon. So I think Jose hit 3 Miraidon mirrors in day 1, which is
Gee,
pretty
how do
funny.
you at 7%? That's just like yeah, that just feels bad. But I guess your build is the more aggressive build. So that's
Yeah,
actually a matchup you want to
yeah.
hit. To be honest, for Jose, that's like a matchup. You're the faster build, so you want to be hitting those. So, yeah,
Wes Hollenberg though had kind of I think more of what we would expect to see
Flaffy.
from Miraidon, the 2/2 Flaffy line in there with the 2 Raichu and also the Magnezone V-Star.
Yeah,
3
I mean,
Judge as well. So I mean, I guess the strat is should like Magnezone V plus Judge, KO Manaphy, and then next turn V Star, right?
yeah, that would have to be the route you'd look for. I mean, even if you get all that off, it's still tough to beat the Lost Box deck. But yeah, you have like some potential there. I almost feel like I would rather go if I was gonna play Mariano, I would go the Jose route.
All gas,
Jose
baby.
route for sure. Yeah, just all gas and just like have some cute stuff in there to beat the other two prize stuff, like your favorite and mirror, and then you're hoping to hit Mew and Lugia the rest of the day, or hit against a Guardy or a Lost Box at dead draws. 'Cause I don't think the Guardy matchup is great for Rhydon either. I think it's a little bit
And
unfavorable as
then one
well.
deck that we have left to talk about is Kyogre. We haven't really talked about it yet, but 3 in the top 8, yourself included as well in the top 4 finish. Um, and we can also, I guess, just kind of transition this into, I guess before we talk about Fresno, we want to recap our predictions. But so, yeah, just Kyogre for this tournament. You guys decided to run the same 60 that we played, or that you played in Hartford just a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, why was there even after Danny made top 8, why was it not necessary to change anything?
Um, wasn't a strong enough showing or big enough showing for people to probably tech for the matchup. And that's, I mean, we saw some people, like there was one of the Mews in top in Milwaukee. Brian had the Lost City and the Manaphy actually, and the Penny. So it was teched out a decent amount for the Lost Box matchup, but there wasn't that much hate overall. We saw more Lost Cities. Like almost every Mew player played a Lost City. And actually, the Mew player that I had to win in 3 turns against, they played 2 Lost City, and that's why we even went to game 3. Because I was like, I don't have to bench Kyogre here. I'm gonna bench Kyogre here, and they're like, okay, second Lost City, and I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. And then I had to beat them in 3 turns to, to be able to keep up with the pace. So yeah, pretty much everyone had the Lost City in there, which is really good in Mew for the Kyogre matchup because it allows you to. It means the Kyogre player can't bench Kyogre ahead of time because they bench it, you just go boss Lost City, win, and you kind of want to bench it ahead of time so that way you can, if they boss KO it, you just claw it back and then you keep your hand and you win. Or if they judge you, then you have an extra piece set up. You can even put an energy on it on that turn if you have the energy to work with as well. So you're like that much more set up. So yeah, so we saw that, but we didn't think it would be like overly tech for. Like people weren't going to go that far out of their way. There wasn't going to be like Manaphy's and Lugias or anything. I'm sure there was some people with Manaphy and Lugia,
We
but
did think that we were going to
I
see
didn't see
some
one.
Mews with Manaphy's, though. That was something we
Yeah,
were talking about.
we did predict that, and there was a couple. There wasn't just the one in top 8. We definitely saw some more throughout the tournament. I will mention as well. Yeah, Ben Cryer actually did make. I didn't think there was any Arceus decks in top 8 for some reason, but I forgot about Ben with the. Ben did play the Manaphy as well, and Ben beat Danny in on the win it in. Had
Yeah.
the Dunsparce as well. Wait, what is Dunsparce for in this meta? What is fighting? That's like throwing. Oh, I guess Lugia has some stuff. Stonejourner.
Yeah, but not really.
Aptos V is a thing technically. Urshifu. Uh, Rapid
Yeah,
Strike deck.
Rapid Strike and Single Strike Urshifu,
Might be
maybe.
just enough little stuff, I guess, that it's like maybe worth. That's like why you've kind of included in Arceus in the past. Sometimes it's just like there's like enough
It's just such a
2%, 3%er
broken
decks.
card.
Yeah, it is just so broken. Why not include it, right? Um, I guess one more deck we should talk about because it's kind of the most talked about deck from the tournament was definitely that Arceus Keys deck. I think we covered pretty much the top 8 there pretty well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the highest placing of that was Christian Fontenot, who actually got on stream. So if you want to see some gameplay with the deck, go find Christian's game on stream with the Arceus, Klefki, Aerodactyl. Besides that, disruption cards deck. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think he dismantled Grant in about 10 minutes on the stream or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, this is a deck that it's like, I don't care what I'm going up against. They are not going to get to use their abilities. If it's Lost Box, boom, Klefki, let's get it. If it's Lugia, Aerodactyl, and Path to the Peak. If it's Mew, Aerodactyl, and Path to the Peak.
And Klefki.
And, oh yeah, and
And Klefki.
Klefki.
So yeah,
Yeah,
this deck
so,
is all about
yeah, yeah.
shutting down your opponent's abilities through one of those means, and then you got Judge for disruption, and then you just attack with Arceus, and you can attack with Aerodactyl in this deck. Actually, Aerodactyl is like your answer to Dragonite in this deck. Otherwise, you don't have a way to KO Dragonite, but Aerodactyl can KO it with once you load it up for the Lost Dive.
Yeah.
So yeah, really cool deck. I actually think there could be something here. We might see a little bit more of this. I think a lot more people are going to try and pick this up, see if it's actually worth the investment, or is it just one of those decks where the element of surprise gave you a lot higher win percentage than the deck's actual value is. Like that's kind of the question to ask with these decks after a tournament.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, Christian, pretty good player, got 17th. I didn't quite get top 16, but whatever. Obviously, it's a very low played deck overall, so did pretty well. But is there any merit to the deck, or did they just kind of beat a lot of people because people had no idea what was going on? And if that's the answer, then probably not worth playing anymore. But there could be something there for sure.
Also, Lock Win played Arctina, and he played this same deck, I think, card or two different in
Yeah,
Hartford, and he got top 32 there, top 16 here, but it's Arctina with Aerodactyl V-Star. So Aerodactyl making its way kind of back into the meta a little bit
and a
almost.
Flannery. I don't know about that Flannery though.
Oh, that
Locke
is
is always playing some janky cards in there. Locke's always got some jank for sure.
Listen,
So I'm not
dude, if you just have
surprised.
a read on your wait, no, what am I talking about? Flannery. I was thinking of the one that lets you peep your opponent's hand to discard cards, but that's not even Flannery.
Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney.
You
That's
can
what I was
Flannery to
thinking of.
bump a path though to use Starbirth. You can also I mean, I think it's probably in there to get rid of the V-Guard energy most consistently up against
Yeah,
Lugia,
yeah, yeah.
right? But, like, it's not like you can find your Flannery unless you get to hold your V-Star power for that long, so,
Which is
but
kind of tough to do. And
yeah,
especially if you're
so
trying to use Ancient Star.
that's true, that's true. Also, 4 I didn't just notice it, 4 capturing aroma, yeah. Yeah, Locke is always on the jank for sure.
Top 16
So
with
no
it though.
surprise
Got to
there.
respect it.
Yeah, of course, of course. Um, but yeah, always expect something different when you open up a lock list, that's for sure.
All right.
And
Well,
yeah,
let's recap our predictions from last week real quick, and then we'll talk
let's
about
go ahead.
Fresno. We're kind of going long here, to be honest, and
Alright,
we
let's
have to
get
do our
moving,
30
Chip.
minute bonus episode as well, Azul. So, yeah, real quick, our predictions from last week. We predicted Fusion Mew over under wins for the three tournaments. Would it win? Basically, just would it win a tournament this
Yeah,
weekend?
yeah.
Chip said no. Azul said yes, and the result was no.
No.
So I got you on that one, but you got redemption here because I was actually thinking more about this while we were getting ready for this episode. My prediction here makes no sense because I said there would be over 6.5 Mew in top cut of all the tournaments, but that Fusion Mew would not win the tournament, which is kind of just a prediction that like those predictions counteract each other pretty
I mean,
heavy.
that's
But
like you've seen Harry Potter, right?
yeah,
Remember where Fred and George make that bet that one team wins, but the other team gets the golden snitch?
yeah.
Yeah, that's that bet right here for you.
Sure.
You're like, Fusion Me won't win, but there'll be over 6 of them, or there'll be at least 7 of them in top cut. But of course that includes DTE Mews as well. And there was 5, only 1 Fusion Mew, which is interesting. Definitely interesting to
Yeah.
only see the 1 Fusion Mew there.
And if we look at the day two results of Milwaukee, it was 12 DTE Mew in day two and 5 Fusion Mew in day two. So I don't know what the numbers were like day one, if it was more closer to 50-50, but DTE Mew kind of did just show that it maybe is just a little bit more consistent route to go right now in this format. Do you think that's the truth or
I think one thing I didn't really account for when thinking about it was just like it's definitely the easier deck to play is Double
for
Turbo Mew.
sure.
Like maybe
Yeah.
a lot of people just didn't want to like put the extra effort into learn Fusion Mew or get the sequencing down. And we're just like, I've already been playing DT Mew. It's not like you just like switch to Fusion Mew and you're just as comfortable. There definitely a level of comfortability difference between Fusion and Double Turbo Mew. So including actually factoring that in, the more I think about it, the correct prediction would probably be DT Mew would have stayed the more popular of the two Mews. But I didn't think about that in the moment when I was kind of like making the prediction last week. And the last prediction we did have, which is more popular in top 8, which once again kind of over the other two already. DTE only 1 fusion, and then 4 DT. So Chip 2-1 on the predictions for
Let's
this
go.
week. We got another regional coming up, Fresno. So there's a couple things to talk about. I don't know if I think it is for sure, but it feels kind of like it might be, which is Kyogre the best deck in format. It feels like it kind of does edge out everything else in terms of like matchup spread. It feels like it definitely has the
Yeah.
best matchup spread.
Yeah, so I mean, I think like we're probably a little biased here, right? But we chose to play it for this last tournament, so we feel like it's the best deck, at least for that tournament. I think the big draw of Kyogre, at least, I mean, this is what I feel like it's been at least is, and you can attest or disagree with this, but um, is that just it's like a deck that you're not really ever out of a game, right? Aquastorm
Yeah.
is such an insanely powerful attack, 250 damage to 2 Pokemon in play. You can prep damage on things with the Sableye to set it up and make sure you can KO Guardy EXs or Lugia V Stars, whatever it is on the bench. Yeah, I mean, you are just really it's a deck that it feels like you are never out of a game until your opponent takes their last prize card, which I think there's not really any other deck in the format that feels like that. Maybe DTE Mew, just because you have Roxanne
Yeah.
Path and gives you the best chance. But even that is more a I'm playing this and crossing my fingers.
It's
Where
more
Kyogre,
agonizing to sit there and be like, "All right, do they have it? Do they have it? Do they have it? Do they have it?" Instead of being like, "All right, do I have it? Do I have it? Do I have it? Do I have it?" And you're just like,
yeah,
it
yeah.
feels better to be asking the question, "Do I have it?" instead of "Do they have it?" for sure.
Now that being
Um,
said, I think Kyogre probably is the BDIF, but I don't know that it's gonna be that heavily played. I think it'll be more played in Fresno, maybe as far as lost box percentages go, than it was in Milwaukee. It was pretty popular in Milwaukee. A lot of good players picked up Kyogre for this tournament, but I mean, it is so. I mean, that deck puts you through the blender, more so than any other lost box deck does.
More so than any other deck in the format does. I don't think it's
Yeah.
close. Like how much more exhausting it is to play. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it'll be like too much more popular. It's kind of like gonna probably be like the same similar thing to like Fusion Mew versus DT Mew. So like, is anyone really gonna make that switch over to Kyogre a week before the tournament, just after it had its really good runs? I don't think so. Some good players might like it might incentivize some of the more top players to be like, all right, maybe I should put a little bit more effort into Kyogre. But I don't think we're gonna see the average player. Like if they've been running like a more turbo lost box build, something like the running cameraman build, I think they'll probably stick with that. I probably would recommend sticking with that. And if you don't have really the time or haven't been investing the time to like rock the Kyogre, and we did just have a. I guess I'll give my opinion on this one first, which is like the next thing we had put on our doc here was will Guardy have another deep run? I've been putting Guardy in like tier 3 recently personally. And I don't actually know if I'd move it out of tier 3, but I think that like as far as tier lists go in this format, it's really close. Like tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3 is like, a couple points away. So like personally, I wouldn't be surprised if Guardy won again. I wouldn't really be that surprised to be honest. Um but I think I would still like have Guardian like tier 3 on like a tier list, like
Mhm.
overall.
Yeah, I mean, its matchups against every deck in the format are solid except for Lost Box, right? That's just really kind of the main issue. Lost Box is pretty tough to beat, but you can still beat it, right? I mean, we saw Henry
Yeah.
was able to take down Caleb in the finals. Um, and Guardy, I mean, of the three tournaments, Guardy won two of them. So there's something to be said there. Now, I mean, two world class players piloting it, which definitely has something to do with that, right? But I
And I think
mean,
that's always going to be a big factor on the day as well,
of
right? Like
course.
what are the best players bringing? And sometimes it's kind of like who gets a little bit more fortunate than the others, but you don't want to think about that much. There's so much depth to Pokemon that there's always more that pretty much every player at the tournament can do to maximize and give themselves a better odds of winning the tournament, from deck choice to tech choice to prepping to just drinking enough water and I don't know, getting some caffeine throughout the day. Even like little things like that can make a big difference in like your mental state going throughout a tournament. So yeah, a lot less comes down to luck than people think for sure. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Guardy. Like if Guardy won again, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think I'd still have it as like a tier 3 deck on my tier list. But like I said, like tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3, it's a couple percentage points away from one another.
Next up, when we're talking about the Mews, we talked a lot about Mew the last couple weeks. Fusion or DTE Mew for Fresno Azul? What do you think is better? Which would you be more likely to play? I guess is one question, and then off that, like, which one do you think will finish a little better or be more I guess which one will be more popular? I think the answer to be more popular is probably just DTE Mew again, right?
Yeah, I think it would have to be DT Mew. I think I would play Fusion Mew though. If I had to pick, I would probably once again I would go with the hybrid build that last has been like popularizing recently. But I think I would go Fusion over Double Turbo. I think I like it a little bit more, especially if like decks like Maridon and the Arceus decks are still going to maintain pretty high numbers. I would rather have the more aggressive option up against those. I feel like overall.
We've seen the Arceus deck still hanging around. Ben Cryer got top four with Arctina. There was a second place Arctina in Santiago,
As well as an Arc-Umbreon.
and then an Arctina top eight. So, I mean, Arctina, I think, had a bit of a resurgence. Last week, the story was all about Arc Umbreon, right? Off of Hartford. It
Yeah,
really blew up in Hartford, was super, super popular, and did really well, like four in the top 16 or something like that. But it seems like Arctina having a little bit more of a resurgence. I don't know what's
I
the
think
reason for that. And moving into Fresno, which would you prefer?
I think it just shows kind of the inconsistencies of the decks, and like it's just kind of I think it more so just shows that neither of the decks are actually a tier 1 deck, because like it's just kind of like one weekend one will show up, the another weekend another will show up. Whereas like every weekend, Lost Box shows up, Lugia shows up, Mew shows up every single week, right? Those will always show up. But we see like sometimes the Arctina shows up, sometimes the Arc Umbreon shows up, and of course that does have to do with their play rate a little bit as well, right? They're just definitely less played, but they're probably less played for a reason as well. On top of that, right? So I think the decks are solid. The first thing, if I was like someone who's like kind of committed to an Arceus deck, I would try Arceus Keys. I'd put a lot of time to that Arceus Keys Aerodactyl deck. From the second I kind of realized it was a deck, and I was kind of like committed to like an Arceus deck for the tournament, I'd try that out and see if I feel like it works. And if it works, then I'd probably run with that if it feels like it works better than the other Arceus decks. If not, I think I still like the Arceus Umbreon Duraludon deck a little bit more than Arctina. Not a huge fan of just kind of the linearness of Arctina. So I think I'd go with the Arc Umbreon. Also because Arc Umbreon has like a better Gardevoir matchup. I think we
Mhm.
can predict a little bit of a higher percentage from Gardevoir. Maybe gets up to like around 15 again. We'll see.
And then the last deck to talk about, Miraidon, made its way onto the day one graphic in Milwaukee. You think we'll see it on the day one graphic again coming up here in Fresno? And what list? I mean,
um,
that's still kind of the big question with Miraidon is like, what list should people go with?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it made it to the graphic again. It's because it did this time. I don't know what would really replace it. Maybe Arctina comes back on the list, or Gudra, I guess, would be the other one to come up. But Gudra, no shot. So I guess they're the only one to replace it. But I can see Miraidon staying up there. We've seen like some more cool builds coming out. And if I was playing it, I'd play the Marzon build for sure. That just seems
You
like
just found
if
out about it like 20 minutes
yeah.
ago.
Yeah, but now that I know it exists, I was like, it just makes sense. Like I played against two Miraidons this tournament in Milwaukee. They both had the Magnezone. One of them had Manaphy. I dumpstered them with Kyogre Lost Box anyways. It's like, why would you tech for a auto loss when you could tech against your potential wins, right? Like make your
Just make
matchups
the
that you could
deck
actually play
better.
against. Yeah, and just like beat every Mew and Lugia and Mirror Match and Arceus decks that you just beat all those decks. That sounds like a better time to me, to be honest. So I like that. I like that turbo build. I would put a Raichu in though. I think you want the option to be able to one hit KO something that's a little bit bigger. And maybe a couple EXP shares to retain some energy to be able to use with the Raichu, but
The thing about EXP share is that the stuff that it's best against, which is really, I guess it's still EXP share is going to stay in play against the Arceus decks, I guess. But
yeah.
against the Mew decks, EXP share is never staying in play, right? I mean, they play 4 lost vacuum, so that thing's just
Yeah.
gone.
Maybe put a Drapion in there for the Mew matchup then.
Sure.
About the Mew matchup a little bit. But yeah, something like that. Like I like this like the turboness of the turbo build. Like I like that
Azul's
full
got to go
turbo.
fast.
Yeah, those are like the only things to consider, I think, like to help out your prize trading couple in a couple matchups. Like um maybe the Raichu, so you can hit big numbers. Maybe you want some EXP shares to go into that. EXP shares aren't exclusively just to keep energy in play for Raichu, but they can also set up your next attacker, and then maybe a Drapion for the Mew matchup, unless you already feel like you're kind of bopping Mew pretty consistently. But yeah, I like that something more turbo than the Flaffy builds or the Reggie the Lucky VMAX build is nowhere to be seen anymore. It feels like so. Those are not the
Yeah.
move, I don't think.
Yeah, that one tanked real hard. Well, as well, I think that covers everything we wanted to talk about in regards to Fresno. And I think from there we can move on to guess the flavor text. But before, we do have to take a second to thank our sponsor, Dragon Shield. Huge thanks, as always, to Dragon Shield for being a sponsor of the Uncommon Energy podcast. Dragon Shield, for those who don't know, makes some of the best card gaming and tabletop gaming products and accessories on the market, including sleeves, binders, deck boxes, and so much more. Normally, Azul would insert here and talk about what sleeves he used at the most recent tournament, but your boy played in a tournament this weekend, which means he gets to talk about what sleeves he used. That's me. That's right. I used the forest green Dragon Shields, and I was actually a big fan. They felt really clean, felt really good. Didn't have to replace a single sleeve through 9 rounds. No, I did only play 9 rounds, didn't play all through day two like everyone else got to, but I feel pretty good about my sleeves coming off the tournament.
Yeah, I actually use the forest greens as well myself. One of the
Let's go. We
I
were
switched.
twins. I didn't even know
I
that.
I resleeved at some point. I think resleeved into the forest greens. I started with the
Oh, dude, you
orange.
resleeved during the lunch break.
Yeah. I went from orange to
Which, by the way, for anyone
greens,
listening,
forest
was
greens.
after round 4. Azul was like, you know what? I'm resleeving.
I was just feeling a switch up. So we went to switch up, got into the forest greens, carried me the rest of the way through the tournament. And yeah, huge shout out to Dragon Shield for sponsoring the podcast. You can go find them at dragonshield.com/webshop/EU or US, depending on where you're located. And of course, they're going to be available everywhere else you go, card shops. If you're at a tournament, I you'll be able to find them at one of the vendors there as well. If you're ever at a
Yep.
tournament, they'll be at the vendors, local card shops, Walmart, Amazon, you name it, they're there. Get yourself some Dragon Shield sleeves. And with that said, Chip, what flavor text am I guessing this week?
That's right. It is time for Guess That Flavor Text, where each week either Azul or I picks a card, reads the flavor text, and has the other host try to guess which Pokemon that card features. It is my turn this week to give Azul a guess. I'm currently ahead by 4 points, thanks to a win a few weeks ago. So we'll see if Azul can get a little bit of catch up here. There are 3 lifelines that he can use. He gets 4 points if he gets it right without any lifelines. For each lifeline he chooses to use, he loses a point. And the lifelines are what set the card is from, what stage the card is, and read an attack name. And if you're ready, Azul, I think you got a shot at this one. I'll say, I think you
Okay.
got a shot.
I'm ready, Chip. Hit me with it.
Because the long hair all over its body obscures its sight, it just keeps charging repeatedly.
Um, so I'm thinking of the first one I thought of was the Stoutland because it's got the long hair covering its eyes. But it sounds like a smart Pokemon, which I didn't really know until we started doing the flavor text. Like it's like a wise Pokemon, whatever. Like the Stoutland.
Hang on, give me 1 second, real quick. Okay, go ahead. I refreshed your camera because it was like kind of freezing. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think it's Stoutland, but now I'm also thinking of the Grave Pokemon. I literally we had one Gravestone, Tombstone, and then I forget what the evolution is called now, but I remember the evolution last time, I feel like. Um, but I don't know the name of the Pokemon because it's long hair. It does have its hair covering
So
its
you think I
face.
picked one of the new Pokemon, huh?
I mean, it's possible. We could go with what card set the card is from to kind of narrow it down. So let's go with that. What set the card is from?
The set this card is from is Heart Gold Soul Silver Triumphant.
Okay, so it's not. Could narrow that down quite a bit. So it's not that. So read it again for me. Go ahead one more
Yeah,
time. Give
sure.
me that
Because the long hair all over its body obscures its sight, it just keeps charging repeatedly.
long. Now I'm thinking of like what Pokemon has long hair, obscures its sight, it keeps charging repeatedly. But this is Heart Gold Soul Silver. For some reason, I was thinking of Primape's evolution because in my head, I imagine his hair
Annihilate?
being long. Annihilate, but that's also not
No.
Heart Gold Soul Silver Triumphant. Long hair covering its body, covering its vision. I mean, I think there is a Stoutland back then. It does have long hair and it covers its body. And then there might be a Herdier as well. And now I'm the basic is named like Pup something. What is it? What is the basic called? Something. I know it's like super
The little one is
Lillipup. Yeah,
Lillipup,
Lillipup.
yeah.
So
I've
maybe I
decided
should.
from here on out when Azul's just struggling with a Pokemon's name, I'm gonna just tell him what it is.
I might go with Stoutland here because that's all that I can think of a Pokemon with long hair. I know there was a black and white. No, we said this was Heart Gold Soul Silver.
Heart Gold Soul Silver, so it's before Black and White.
Before black and white. Heart Gold Soul Silver.
When did
Pokemon.
Stoutland start to exist, Azul?
I don't know. Go ahead. Read me the flavor text one more time. Just one more time,
One
and I'll have
more.
to do some.
Oh, the triple
Okay.
read. Okay. Because the long hair all over its body obscures its sight, it just keeps charging repeatedly.
All right. What stage is the card?
It is a stage 1.
A. So it probably isn't. What? Give me an attack name. We're gonna go through all of them.
Blizzard.
Blizzard. Oh, it could be long hair. Well, now you said Blizzard, so now I'm thinking Abomasnow. But I don't know. I don't think Abomasnow has hair. Oh man, this one's a mess. I don't know. So some kind of ice Pokemon or water. Some kind of ice Pokemon with Blizzard, long hair. Oh, is it the stage 1? Oh, it's Swinub Pillow-Swine.
It is Piloswine,
Oh,
Azul.
Piloswine. Let's
You got it.
go.
Let's go.
That's
Azul
it. I
gets
can't
a
believe
point. I was gonna
Pillow-Swine does
say
look like it's charging endlessly.
I was gonna say um the other attack name Hammer in, but you were really struggling. So I decided to throw you a bone with Blizzard,
Yeah,
and
I
it ended
never.
up helping you. It got you there,
It
Azul.
did. I never would have got if you had said hammer in, I never would have got it. So now what? You're only 2 points up on me.
Bro, I was
Mhm.
up 4. You just
No, you're
got
up
1.
3. I got 1. Oh no, I only got. You're up 3. You're up 3.
I'm up 3.
You're up 3. All right. Yeah, we are running a little bit long on this one, but I feel like every time we say that, the comment section is always like, "I like the longer episodes,"
Yeah, the
you know.
problem here
So
is that after we're done with this longer episode, we got to record for 30 more minutes for the Patreon now. So
I mean, that's fine. I got
it is. It
I
is.
got time. I know it's getting a little bit late for you, but
Yeah, brother.
so let's talk about Paldea Evolved then. Let's just talk a little bit about Paldea Evolved. We'll definitely talk a little bit more about it, or a lot more about it in the weeks leading up to NAIC, of course. Um, but we kind of covered everything else. This format's, of course, getting a little bit stale as well. So let's talk about some new cards, and then I mean, we kind of made a little bit of a list here, so we can start with the number one card coming out of the set, Iono.
Without a
And,
doubt.
I mean, I don't know if there's that much to say about it. It's a comeback card. We haven't seen one of these in a while. I think it's gonna have a big impact on the game. From what we've seen from Japan's format and Taiwan, it really seems to have just enabled Guardy to be the BDIF more so than anything. But I'm definitely looking at this card as more so of a fixer of the future of the game as opposed to the immediate next format when it comes out.
I mean, I think it's a little of both, honestly. Like, I mean, this is a card that's gonna. I don't. Yeah, sure. It's not gonna like. I guess I see what you're saying. It's not gonna like fix the format, but I don't think this format is terrible by any means.
Oh,
This
I don't think
format
so
feels.
either. I'm just saying it's
This
not gonna
format.
be. I
Mhm,
think we're gonna see the bigger impact of this card in like a rotation from now,
sure.
or
Yeah,
maybe a couple more
potentially.
sets.
I mean, yeah. I mean, this is a card that I think is going to be a 3 to 4 of in almost every deck for as
Mm,
long as it's in format. The exceptions being stuff like Lost Box, I guess, right?
I think the
There are
exceptions
decks.
being maybe like next format, because from what we've seen from Taiwan and Japan, there's not that much Iono, and there's like one or two in most decks that aren't Law Zone decks.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's like Chien Pao plays 2, Lost Tina plays 1 to 2,
Came on
Architects
a little
play like
strong with my
2.
prediction there. I've
Yeah,
changed
Guardy is
my
playing 4
mind.
though. Guardy is playing 4, and it does kind of make sense once you look at the list and you look what okay, if these decks are still good, it makes sense that they wouldn't play a ton. So like I said, I think for us to get to the point where we are playing 4 of these in every single deck, we are like a rotation away, maybe, or maybe 2 or 3 sets down the line will change that as well.
Now,
Or
do you
actually, we're
think
only
you
like a
would
set away from rotation, so
do you think you would
rotation.
like a format where this card is a 4 of in most decks?
I don't know. I mean, if the other decks are interesting, I guess we don't really need that. I'm a little bit tired of the Lost Zone engine at this point, and Mew, and Lugia. So I am like, I definitely. So if it means there's 4 of Ionos in decks to kind of freshen things up a little bit, I'm kind of down for that.
Yeah, I almost wonder if this is even gonna be played in Mew, right? Like,
Maybe a one of.
part of
It's
the
probably better than Roxanne, right? Because it's better early.
yeah,
Because you still have Genesect, so in the late game, it's still you both go to 2 cards maybe, but like you don't care, you're gonna draw back up a Genesect, right? So
sure.
you probably won't play Roxanne anymore.
But, like, Judge is still gonna be played
Yeah,
in
yeah, it'll
Mew
be like
because,
one
like, that's your whole
Iono.
strategy is to try to leave your opponent with less cards in the early game.
Yeah, but I mean, Spirit Team's coming out. I don't know how good Mew actually will be with Spirit Team coming out.
Sure.
But I could see it. Of course, the
Uh,
biggest card I think from the set probably going to bring us it won't be the best deck in the format, but it'll be the best deck from this set. Will definitely be Chien Pao Excalibur, I think.
yeah, and we've seen that already with the results from Taiwan. It did pretty well when combined as well with the Origin Form Palkia V-Star. Um,
E barrels
yeah, I
in
mean,
there
I
most of the
think
time.
I recognized when I first read this card that it was really strong, but I just didn't think it was gonna be, like, super, super played just because of where I felt like the format was, but I think I might be a little wrong about that, to be
Yeah, it felt.
honest.
I had the same feeling. It felt kind of like bad Miraidon. I think it is
Mhm.
slightly better Miraidon, but I actually don't think that the card is that good because I think your Guardy matchup is bad, and I think Guardy's by far the best deck in the format, or like not by far, but solidly the best deck in the format. I think Guardy's solidly the best deck in the format. So if you have an unfavorable Guardy matchup, why would you play the deck? I think I worked on a build last week before Milwaukee, and I've been seeing some other builds come out with like canceling cologne and cross switchers and stuff like that, or even heavy boss counts. So you can actually use Greninja aggressively to actually get ahead in the prize trade against stuff like Guardy and Lost Box. I think that's the route we'll see lists kind of evolve into is like, you have Irida in there. You can kind of cherry pick a lot of things out of your deck. So we'll kind of see I think that's we'll see the evolution goes like you abusing Greninja to get ahead in the prize trade, which makes sense.
Yeah, totally, totally. A couple other trainer cards that I think we could mention. There's several, honestly, and other ones that I didn't even write down here on this list, but one I want to mention is Artisan Stadium card. We've seen played a little bit in some of the decks in Japan and Taiwan.
Yep.
Just lets you search a deck for a basic that does not have a rule box and put it directly onto your bench. Just a generally solid setup card, can make your turn ones a little bit better. I don't know. I feel like once we get to a format where Battle VIP Pass doesn't exist, this card gets a lot better. But
Yeah.
even right now, this seems okay.
Yeah, especially if like you're like we've seen some Guardy lists choose to play this over Nest Balls because it's a counter stadium plus a Pokemon search card, right? So
Mhm.
get the multi-use out of it there, kind of
And
protect your
Guardy's like a
space in
deck
your
that
deck.
you don't really care if your opponent sets up. You just want to set up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's probably some. Yeah, you don't really care too much if your opponent sets up. Maybe against Lost
Sure.
Box, you're not over the moon about it, but yeah, it's definitely not as big of a deal for sure. But I think the biggest story for the trainer cards, besides the Iona, is definitely the recovery cards that we're getting back, which is the Super Rod, which is, I mean, one of the. I think this is like an underrated reason why Guardy is, or maybe it is the reason, and we just maybe people just haven't mentioned it as much. Like Iona is definitely a big deal for Guardy, but I think Super Rod might
Iono's the
be.
flashy reason.
Yeah, but Super Rod is like the maybe the actual reason why Guardy is going to be so much better. Combos with recovering your Pokemon super aggressively. You don't have to Miriam or Clara and take your turn off of playing a supporter. Now you get to Super Rod and then Iono your opponent down to like a 3 or a 4 card hand while recovering the Pokemon you needed. And then it also combos really cool with really well with the Shiny Arcana Gardevoir, where you can like just put back like 3 basic energy and then just use the Gardevoir and attach 2 basic energy for turn from that to whatever Pokemon. That's why I've been seeing kind of like the counter box Guardy deck that's been being played, where it's like it has one Guardy EX in there to maybe charge up Mewtwo V Union at the end of the game, but you don't
Mhm.
even need the Guardy EX. You're just kind of like a 4 or a quad reversal energy deck, and then you have like Super Rod to
Yeah.
enable the Shiny Arcana.
Super Rod's just super strong, and I think it'll be similar to what we've seen from it in the past whenever it's been in standard formats of the past, where it's a very consistent one of in about 60 to 80% of the decks in the format. I think that's going to
Yeah,
be the truth for Super Rod pretty much as long as it is standard legal, to be honest.
yeah. We'll see some decks abuse it more, like the Guardy or like the
Yeah.
Lost Box. And in Lost Box specific, I think in combo, like you go like Pokestop. Now, like Pokestop gets Super Odd, it gets Nest Ball. Like you can just like Pokestop through your whole deck super aggressively with Lost Box now, and just find these item cards and pull together your combos. Because like without the Clara, we still been seeing a lot of Clara in Lost Box in Taiwan and Japan, from those big tournaments. But I feel like that's probably wrong. I think more Super Odd, more Pokestop. That combo right there is just kind of insane.
Yeah, I think the thing can be when you're trying to chain Sableye, you just need to get it back in your hand, right? And
Yeah,
Clara
that's
just
a,
does that for you. Gets you the Pokemon and the energy card right back to your hand, so you're ready to Lost Mine right away.
yeah, I could see it. But yeah, Super Odd
We'll see
definitely
how
really
it
good.
develops.
We'll see.
And then the Superior Energy Retrieval is another big one. Discard 2 cards from your hand, and then put 4 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. So great energy recovery for energy flood decks like the Baxcalibur. There's probably some other random things that'll pick up with this. There's other like energy flood type abilities in the format, right? There's like the Cherum or something like that. So maybe something cool can come up with that in the future because
Maybe
of the
play it
existence
with
of this card.
Inteleon, like a more Inteleon VMAX focused deck where you play this to recover like
Yeah,
4
yeah.
energy. Set up 4 Inteleon VMAX, play the superior, recover all your energy. Usually energy retrieval gets you there, so probably not. But I think this is a really powerful card, but it's obviously not it's not like a staple like a super rod, but it's a super powerful card. We'll definitely see a lot of it in the future for sure.
A few more Pokemon. This one I'm kind of excited to try out, and I don't know that it's going to be amazing right away, but I think that there will be a time for this card. And that is Ting EX with the Cursed Ground ability. If this Pokemon is in your active spot and your opponent's Pokemon, or sorry, your opponent's, if this Pokemon is in your active spot, your opponent's Pokemon with damage counters on them have no abilities. Oh, excluding
Excluding
Pokemon
Pokemon.
EX.
Wait, you didn't know that?
How did I
This
not
card
know
would
that?
probably be broken if it didn't have that, or if it didn't
I don't
have
think it
that
would be
clause.
broken, but it would be super good.
It'd be better. Okay, yeah, that's true. Maybe not broken.
Yeah, this
But
got
yeah,
a
I think the
lot
big
worse. Okay,
thing.
now it makes sense why no one else is as excited about this card.
I think there's a
Oops.
possibility for this to come around eventually.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
first I thought it was only basic Pokemon. So when I learned that I could shut off stuff like V-Star powers like Arceus and Lugia, and you can even shut off Archeops afterwards, I was like, oh, this thing's way better than I thought it was. But yeah, I'm definitely not sold. The energy cost on the attack, you're just not putting that much pressure on. And it's
Yeah.
hard for you to consistently put on pressure. 3 fighting energy for only 150 damage is just not a lot, right? So I think that's where it's kind of its shortcomings are is through its very awkwardly costly attack. Also 4 retreat costs. Like why does it need to have 4 retreat costs? That's just
Bro,
like
he's a big boy.
I mean, yeah,
He's
but it
got a
just
big
feels
old bowl on his head.
yeah, Ting Lu could be good, but it's definitely one of those things where it's like it's not going to be a consistent factor in the meta. I don't think it'll be one of those decks that pops up and maybe wins a regional. Someone gets the right timing down with it, which would be cool to see. But yeah, it's definitely not going to be a consistent factor in the format.
Next card to talk about is the Wochian EX that combos with the Fortress. I think Fortress obviously is the one that stands to be a little bit stronger, but Wochian is pretty solid. Devouring Ivy, grass, colorless, 60 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon for each prize your opponent has taken. And of course, Fortress EX.
Is that how you pronounce fortress? Fortress?
Fortress. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. I need to double check that though, but so yeah, Fortress EX with its explosive energy ability. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for 5 basic grass energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. Then shuffle your deck. If you search your deck in this way, this Pokemon is knocked out. I actually think it's kind of cool that it's worded like this because I just like thought of this as I was reading it just now. And I don't think there's any reason you would do this currently, but there could theoretically at some point be a reason and a way that you would put energy cards onto Fortress EX and then it gets knocked out. Then those energy cards go to your discard pile. Now you've activated energy cards from your discard pile potentially if there's something to combo there.
Yeah. I mean, there'd definitely be some combos for sure. The initial combos from it are seemingly lacking. We do have a decent amount of grass, like V Pokemon. Like Shaman is something that might see play with this. Shaman V Star does more damage for each prize card your opponent's taken. And obviously these combos with like Iona or even Roxanne, right? If you like if you go first and pop 2 Fortress, turn 2, and then Roxanne your opponent to 2, and then knock out their most relevant Pokemon, that's not bad to be honest. That probably puts you in a pretty good spot. You can even path them as well. So but it might just be kind of a cheesy combo deck, right? It's just like you hope to go first, combo turn 2, and then that's all your deck does, right? We can also see something like Diancie being a playable card in here to slow. Like if you go second, throw that up as your first Pokemon. They have to KO one prizer, then you Fortress, then you Roxanne, and you kind of take over from there. So yeah, Fortress is good. Wu Chien is kind of just a card to combo with it. We might have to wait for some better grass attackers to really have this thing get off the ground, if it is ever going to get off the ground, though, as far as a competitive deck.
Mahone made a video where there was like a tabletop game where someone was playing Wochian and it was Jesse Parker and the other Pokemon in the deck that was like the other attacker was slacking V.
Oh yeah,
Just does 260 damage, right?
yeah, that
And he
wouldn't be
was
bad.
playing Path of the Peak and Iono, right? So I mean, it's just like a hard hitter. So that's the other cool thing about this is that it does not have to go to grass Pokemon. It does have to be grass energy, so that limits what you can do with it a lot, but it's probably good that that's how it is because if this could just get any basic energy out of the deck,
That'd be too
like
good. Yeah,
yeah, that would be a little too good. So I mean, and that's what I like when they do stuff like this, like they make a really powerful effect but like give it to one type. So you have to kind of
yeah, yeah.
work with that, I don't like stuff like Artisan where it's just like, yeah, go get your basic for anything.
Yeah, I definitely like it when they're like a little bit limiting with what types can take advantage of the card. Um, One card that has no types to be able to take advantage of, but I think that's probably fine. Is you got the Squawkabilly EX. And the reason this card is gonna be good because of its ability, which says once in your turn, during your first turn, you may discard your hand and draw 6 cards. So a little bit flashbacks of Dedenne with this one, but it is limited to your first turn. But it is a little bit more powerful than a Dedenne's ability, where Dedenne was when you played it from your hand. Squawkabilly is just during your turn. So you could like bench Squawkabilly, play research, use Squawkabilly's ability, discard your hand, draw 6, go from there. Right. So a little bit more flexibility, but it has to be on your first turn. So it very much is a turn 1 explosive setup Pokemon. But I think this is like pretty well balanced, right? It doesn't feel like this could get out of control like the Shaman or Dedenne's kind of did. I guess Shaman was kind of necessary because of Mega Ray, but
Yeah, I think this is something that it could go crazy with some like turbo go second, do something crazy turn one type deck, right? Like, a Miraidon or something like that, where you just want to
Yeah.
burn through the deck, get your generators, get energy cards in play, and then blow up whatever your opponent's active Pokemon is.
Yeah, but I feel like it's squishy enough and limiting enough where it's like it feels balanced.
And it has a
Squawkability
pretty
feels
decent
balanced.
attack too, to be honest. That
Yeah.
energy flow, 20 damage, and then attach 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So, I mean, hey, you're going first, and you start your squawkability. We can use that energy flow. Oh, and that is the other nice thing as well, is like starting Dedenne and Shaman was always so terrible. If you start this thing, you still get to use it. It's actually like maybe one of your
Yeah.
best starters now, all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. It feels balanced. It helps you get off the ground on that first turn, but then from there, it is the drawback is it's going to be useless. But as like a one of in a couple decks, it doesn't seem like it's being played initially over in Japan at all, except in Ting decks to get the energy in the discard pile to corride on it to the Ting. There's so many steps to actually get that thing attacking. It's insane. But I think this will see play, right? There's no way. This is a very powerful ability. Sure, it's only on the first turn, but we'll definitely run to some decks that eventually use Squawk ability to great effect.
And we've got a bunch of special. Oh, I just scrolled past this. Do you want to say anything
Keep scrolling.
about?
Nah, keep scrolling. Keep going. Keep going. Keep
Okay,
going.
United Wings, Wings of Union. Come on, man. Let someone dream. So we do have 4 special energies coming out. We got 0 new special energies in Scarlet Violet base set, but they're making up for it here. I think special energy is one of my favorite classifications of cards because I don't know, they just typically it's one of the classifications that any deck can utilize theoretically, and they're always coming up with new ideas, right? Coming up with new
Yeah.
things. And we have a little bit of that here with the Jet Energy. When you attach this card from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, switch that Pokemon with your active Pokemon. Honestly, like all 4 of these special energies are pretty good. So we've got that one. We've got
Well, I don't know if I'd say therapy energy is good. It has an effect. That's about it, though.
it's an okay card. Yeah, that's okay. Sure, sure, sure. But it does something unique that interacts with a relevant deck in the format currently, right? Um, with the Lugia V-Star. So we got Luminous Energy. As long as this card is attached to Pokemon, it provides every type of energy, but only one at a time. We got our Rainbow Energy, but if the Pokemon this card is attached to has any other special energy attached to it, it provides one colorless energy instead. We've got Reversal Energy, which while it's attached to a Pokemon, it provides one colorless. And if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, this card is attached to an evolution Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box. It provides 3 additional or 3 types of any energy instead.
Yeah.
So this is,
So
I think, obviously the biggest one. And then the therapy energy, just real quick. The Pokemon it's attached to can't be asleep, confused, or paralyzed. I didn't realize it could still be poisoned or burned, but okay, sure. Why didn't we
should
just
they-
get rid of all special conditions?
that'd be too good. They might come out with like I don't know, a cleansing energy or something, and then it gets rid of poison, burn, confuse, or something. I think that might be what happens. But yeah, the therapy energy can be okay in like Lugia. We've seen people running with Snorlax because they
Yeah.
remove the sleep from the Snorlax. But if your Snorlax isn't getting KO'd, are you just not winning anyways? I don't know. So there's that. Luminous Energy as well has like not been super well played. It's one of those cards that we could definitely see. Like there's been like some weird box type decks in the past where you like have like Malamar with a bunch of different types of attackers with like rainbow energy to enable the attackers. That's where I think
Yeah.
Luminous Energy would fit in some kind of deck like that, or
Or like
a one
Aurora
of an
Energy Welder decks. I remember that for a
yeah,
while.
exactly, stuff like that. That's where Luminous Energy I think will fit eventually. We don't really have a spot for it right now though. Or it can be played as like a one of in Lugia to enable Charizard again, Radiant Charizard. But we kind of saw that come and go in Japan. Like the first time in Japan that was available as an option, they played it, and now everyone's back to the single strike stuff. So I don't know. It didn't really seem like it stuck around.
Yeah, we have seen some colorless Lugia decks doing pretty well though, with the Weird Ear and the Jet Energy, just getting that guy into
Yeah,
the active and then loading a ton of energy cards on it and just nuking from orbit whatever your opponent has in the active spot. And Jet Energy also works with that Snorlax thing, like we were saying. So that's something cool. Like you can Jet Energy to an Archeops. It's got one retreat. Just retreat right back into your Snorlax. You're good to go. So yeah, I think Jet Energy, Reversal Energy are definitely the 2 we'll see the most of immediately coming out of the format. Um, I think that's all the main cards we wanted to talk about. I'm sure there's something else here that we're missing. There's a lot of exciting things in this set. This feels like overall a solid set. I don't think it's like an amazing top tier set. I think Chien Pao seems
no.
pretty good, but a solid set for sure.
I would say this seems like a solid set in terms of like in a vacuum. Like Pokemon TCG cards coming out that like seem cool and interesting, but I think competitive format wise, it does very little to like nothing besides Qianbao, which is like kind of unfortunate. Like it makes Guardy better,
Well, a lot of
but like,
trainers.
well, yeah, but like none of them actually impact anything. Like lost, like Guardy's gonna be tier one now. It was already could
They
have been
all
arguably a
impact
tier one
stuff
deck. Yeah, but
You
like it
just
doesn't
called
the
Guardia
meta.
tier 3 deck 30 minutes
Yeah, but
ago.
but it doesn't change anything. Like Guardy just goes from tier three by like 4 points, and now it's just the tier one. It's a tier S deck. Lost Box is still a deck. It just got it got new options. Qianbao's like the only new deck. Like basically nothing changes. Like we don't get anything new or fresh. Like really, it's like Qianbao's like it.
We get Wings
Um,
of Union, Unity
from
Wings,
what I can see,
United
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Wings.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's a cool card that's coming out, but it's not going to impact the competitive meta. That's what I'm saying. The competitive format is
Just
going to
wait,
stay
bro.
roughly the same overall. But yeah, reversal energy definitely the biggest one there. Enables more options, great things for Guardy. We've seen it in Lugia with the Luxray, but yeah, I'm not too hype on this set. I think we're like a rotation away from, or even two rotations away from being like hype again because it feels it's draining on like the Lost Zone stuff. Lugia is still here, Mew's still here. It's just a little bit draining at this point.
We've already kind of talked about which decks gain the most from this set, but do you think there's any deck that like suffers a lot from anything coming out in this set? Like, does something that comes out in this set makes like the fact that Gardevoir is going to be good? Is that really bad for any other archetype?
I mean, Spiritomb comes out, so Mew probably suffers the most just based on that. Another thing that Mew just doesn't, that just like auto wins Mew sometimes. I think Arceus decks probably suffer quite a bit from how much better Guardy becomes. I would say that'd be like a reasonable analysis of it. Um, yeah, I don't know too much to be. I don't know too much about that to be honest. I don't know what really is going to be hit the hardest. I think anything that struggled against Guardy is just kind of obliterated from the format because of how much better Guardy's going to be.
Well, Azul, do you got any other thoughts on Paldea Evolved or Fresno coming up? Anything else you want to share that we haven't?
No, I don't think so. I think that kind of covers all my thoughts.
I think in the bonus episode this week, we've got some questions that we're going to be going through that people asked over on the Patreon. Shout outs again and thank you to those who've already signed up. And also, we're going to be talking about some exciting new upcoming things that Azul and I have planned for the future of the podcast. Something we're going to be working on as early as this week, even. So, if you want to hear about that, you feel free to check out the Patreon. Of course, no obligation to, but we really appreciate anyone who wants to show us that little additional support. And we're going to get into that bonus episode in just a moment. But for now, we're going to send everyone else out of here. Thanks so much, as always, for listening. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a rating. Fastest and easiest way to support a podcast that is totally free. And if you want to stay connected to us, the best place is over on Twitter. Myself at Chip Ritchie, Azul at AzulGG, Azul_GG, sorry. And the podcast is at uncommon_energy.
Thanks for support. As always, good luck to anyone going to Fresno this weekend. Or I believe there's also a special event in I forget where I was. Where's the special event? There's supposed to be a special
South
event
Africa, or is that
in South
next week?
Africa. No, there's one this week and next week, I think. So the format will be finally closed out next week. But yeah, the last regional is this weekend in Fresno. And then we'll catch y'all next week, 7 a.m. on Tuesdays. See you for now.